All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, to whoever's listening for whatever time frame fits. All praise to the Lord, to the Most High for another day of us all being here. All praise to the Most High for another lesson being brought out. And all praise to the Most High for those of us that have ears to hear. So I pray that we all be able to hear and perceive what the Spirit of the Lord is saying to us in this lesson. So this lesson is going to be the conclusion of the lesson that I've been speaking about in reference to the history of Israel, the cause of the curses, and understanding Deuteronomy 28, verses 16 to 68. And we last left off on Deuteronomy, I think it was chapter 29, in reference to being smitten with madness and groping in the noonday and blindness. But I want to revisit one particular verse, which is Deuteronomy 28, verse 27, in reference to the botch. I made a statement about that on the last video in reference to the botch being, well, I didn't specifically put a name on it. I just made some comments about, the botch that the Lord put on the Egyptians with the skin boils and things of that nature. But after thinking on it a little bit more and reconsidering, when you consider what botch means something being screwed up or messed up, basically a bad situation. So that's why I wanted to just revisit that one verse and try to clarify it a little bit more. When the scriptures talk about God saying that he would smite them with the botch of Egypt, meaning the children of Israel, he would smite them with the botch of Egypt. It doesn't necessarily show one specific sickness or illness or skin disorder to refer to as the botch. So wisdom shows us that botch would mean a collective array of things that happen, meaning all the things that happened to the nation of the Egyptians is what God is referring to when he says, I will smite thee with the botch of Egypt. And then he says, and the emerods with the scab and with the itch, where, you wouldn't be able to be healed by it. So that botch doesn't necessarily specify one particular thing. It's the collective things that the Lord did to him to where Egypt was botched up. So he's basically saying that I'm going to smite you, Israel, with all those things that I did unto the Egyptians, So, all right. So that pretty much clarifies that. So now we're going to jump over to the next verse, or the next curse, which is Deuteronomy 28 and verse 30. And I want to read that. And it says, thou shalt betroth thy wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. So this is a curse, which I've been going over all the curses up until this point, showing the parallel of these curses happening to the children of Israel in the days of Jeremiah. And I'm going to show you later on down the line, I'm going to show you how it correlates and how they fell upon our foreparents when they fled Jerusalem, and even up until this very moment. Well, when our forefathers came over here into this land and the various places that they were scattered into slavery. Okay, so we're gonna deal with verse 30 right now, and I just read the verse, so I'm gonna go to a verse or a precept that identifies what the verse of that curse is talking about. So we're gonna go to Jeremiah chapter 6, and we're gonna start at verse 10. Jeremiah chapter 6, and we're going to start in verse 10. And it says here, verse 10, to whom shall I speak and give warning, that they may hear? Behold, their ear is uncircumcised, and they cannot hearken. Behold, the word of the Lord is unto me a reproach, unto them a reproach. they have no delight in it, meaning they don't have any delight in the word, in hearing the word of God. Therefore, I am full of fury of the Lord. I am weary with holding in. I will pour it out upon the children abroad, meaning he will pour out his fury, and upon the assembly of young men together. For even the husband with the wife shall be taken, the aged with him that is full of days. Now when it says the aged, that means the old men. And when it says him that is full of days, that's a young child, because they have a long life ahead of them. So that's what it means, that's full of days. Okay, and I'm going to continue to read. Hold on one second. Kind of lost my place a little bit there. Yeah, I'm going to continue to read. Verse 12 will be the last verse. And their houses shall be turned unto others, with their fields and wives together. For I will stretch out my hand upon the inhabitants of the land, saith the Lord. Now, we all know and understand, just like when our forefathers were brought here to this land, just based on the history that we've all witnessed, by whether it was by reading books or whether it was by looking at a movie or a video of some sort that shows the things that took place when our forefathers came over. And we know what happened to our foremothers, or the women that were brought over during those days, even though they had wives and they had husbands and children. They were families. And we know what would happen if the slave master or the person of whom they were given to in that land came in and they wanted to be with that woman. They would take her right in your presence and they would go and have their way with her. And that's basically what this verse here is speaking about. And I'm going to go into it a little bit more to show you the difference in between, and because there's verses in the scriptures where God, when he put all the children of Israel into captivity, but the ones that he told to obey his voice, even in that captivity, the Lord kept a hedge about them. And they were able to have wives and children and flourish and prosper in that land. But the ones that would not hearken to the voice of the word of the Lord, when he told them, okay, y'all are going into captivity, and this is what I want y'all to do. I want you to put your necks under the yoke of the king of Babylon, and because you got to serve out this captivity. But when they didn't do that, and they didn't want to do it, then things fell upon them for their hurt. And that's why they had to suffer this type of thing right here. Now, in our time, or the time of our foreparents here in America, they didn't have a choice. But so that pretty much explains that verse. And what we're going to do is just go to the next curse, which is in verse 31. And it says, thine ox, verse 31. This is chapter 28 in Deuteronomy, verse 31. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. I wanted to go back to verse 30. I'm sorry. The last part of verse 30, where it says, thou shalt plant a vineyard and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Let's go over to the book of Amos, chapter 5, and verse 1. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. So if I screw something up or, make a mistake, I try to clear it up as best as I could and go back and deal with it. Okay, so now we're going to go to the book of Amos, chapter 5. We're going to read verse 1 down to 4. Hear ye this word, which I have... Hold on, let me get myself adjusted. Hear ye this word, which I take up against you, even a lamentation, O house of Israel. So he's talking to Israel. The virgin of Israel is fallen. She shall no more rise. She is forsaken upon her land. There is none to raise her up. For thus saith the Lord God, the city that went out by 1,000 shall leave 100, and that which went forth by 100 shall leave 10 to the house of Israel. For thus saith the Lord unto the house of Israel, seek ye me, and ye shall live. I think I put the wrong verse there. Okay, but nevertheless, let's see here. Yeah, I think I put the wrong verse. Let me go to it. I'm sorry about that. Let me go to 11, chapter 11. I'm sorry, verse 11. Okay, yeah, verse 11. I think I was thinking about something else on that, but let's go to verse 11 and 12. For as much therefore as your treading is upon the poor, and ye take from him burdens of wheat, ye have built houses of hewn stone, but ye shall not dwell in them. Ye have planted pleasant vineyards, but ye shall not drink wine thereof. This is parallel. These are parallel words in verse 30, where the scripture says that, you know, we shall not, we will build houses and not dwell in them, and have vineyards, but we shall not gather the grapes. This is one of the curses that, now this is Amos speaking about it. Remember I told you in the last couple of videos that all these prophets were given these prophecies in the days of the kings. So they were all in the same time frame together. So it wasn't just one prophet that got the prophecies. Okay. Now, as soon as I remember what I noted, because I made a notation of chapter 5 for verse 1 and 4. When I remember why I wrote that down, then I'll come back to you and I'll bring the understanding of that to you as soon as I remember. Okay. That's pretty much all I wanted on that. So now we'll go to verse 31. And verse 31 says, thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Okay, so now let me give you the precept that shows you what that's talking about. Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 17. Okay, now I'm just going to read that one verse. In fact, no, let me see. Yeah, I'll start at verse 14. Wherefore thus saith the Lord, God of hosts, because ye speak this word, behold, I will make my words in thy mouth fire, and this people wood, and it shall devour them. This is Jeremiah. This is the Lord talking to Jeremiah. What he would do, he would put his word in the mouth of Jeremiah and make it fire towards the people being Israel. Fire burns wood. Fire burns stubble. So what he's saying is the words that you speak, Jeremiah, they're going to be acted out upon the children of Israel, and it's going to pretty much burn them, or they're going to have to suffer the burden of what's going to happen to them in reference to the curses. In other words, the captivity, or the being slain, the famine, wild beasts and all that stuff like that. So it says in verse 15, it says, lo, I will bring a nation upon you from far, O house of Israel, saith the Lord. It is a mighty nation. It is an ancient nation, a nation whose language thou knowest not, neither understandest what they say. Their quiver is an open sepulchre. They are almighty men, and they shall eat up thine harvest, and thy bread, which thy sons and thy daughters should eat. They shall eat up thy flocks and thine herds. They shall eat up thy vines and thy figs. They shall impoverish thy fenced cities, wherein thou trustest with the sword. Okay, so there you go. Now, Jeremiah is talking to them about these things that's going to happen, because these are the prophecies that the Lord gave to him. What I want you to understand, and what I'm going to I'm gonna show you throughout this lesson how these are not just curses that befell them in the days of Jeremiah. If you just bear with me, and I hope the Lord give you the understanding, as I speak on it, and give you the scriptures to show what I'm trying to say. But it's not only, see, like right here, what he just said, that he was going to send a nation from far. Now I'm gonna point something out on the next one of the because this comes up again. This very phrase, it comes up later on down the line in these curses. And that's what I was saying to you earlier in the first couple of videos, where sometimes you'll hear the same curse is repeated. And when you hear those same curses, they come up and they're repeated, the same precept applies to that curse. Okay? So I don't want you to get confused and you hear the same curse and then you're thinking to yourself, well, what precept is going to show that curse taking place? It'll be the same precept. And in some instance, those precepts, I'll get around to showing you how they happen at different times. All right, so now we're just to kind of save time, I want to try to move along as quick as I can, because I got quite a bit, because I want to go into. I've already shown you the other kingdoms that God was going to put the children of Israel in captivity under, which was the Babylonian kingdom, the Medes and the Persian captivity, the Greek captivity, and the fourth beast that Daniel was talking about and that Daniel showed in his dream. I want to get into that later on just as well. And in the process, in the talking of that, I want to show you some things in reference to the curses taking place and how it applies to the latter days. Remember, the Lord told Jeremiah that Daniel told the king that the Lord had showed him what was going to be or what was going to happen in the latter days. I'm going to show you those latter days, basically those days that are in the days of Christ and even today. All right, so we're going to go to Jeremiah, verse 32. Man, I'm kind of all over the place right now. Verse 32. All right, verse 32 reads, it's Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand, meaning you won't have any might or power to be able to fight to rescue your children, your sons and your daughters, from these other nations. Okay, so we're going to go to Jeremiah chapter 6, and we're going to go to verse 11. All right, Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 11. Therefore, I am full of fury again of the Lord. I am weary of holding in. I will pour it out upon the children abroad and upon the assembly of young men together. So these are your children, the children and the young men. For even the husband with the wife shall be taken, the aged with him that is full of days. Okay, same exact thing. These are your children, your sons and daughters, being given to others. Now, you know what? I'll go ahead and deal with it right now, since I'm at this point. Okay, right here, because I said earlier, I made a statement in reference to those of Israel that put their necks under the yoke of the king of Babylon. The Lord would basically have mercy on them and watch over them and put a hedge about them while they're even in captivity. Same applied with our forefathers, even in the days when they came over here in America. How do you think men today, men such as myself and other brethren, are able to come to the conclusion that we've all come to now, that we're the children of Israel? The Lord, with Ezekiel speaking about the dry bones, they're men that the Lord reserved and preserved for that very thing. And I'm going to show you that too. But this is in reference to how the Lord would keep some of his people in the time of captivity versus some of his people that would still be disobedient to what he said, he would allow their sons and daughters to be given to other people and be taken advantage of. So let's go to Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 1 to 9. So I'll deal with this right now, so that way I don't have to backtrack and come back to it. Being that I'm dealing with it now, when it comes up later on down the line in this lesson, all I have to do is make a statement towards these verses that I'm showing you now, and you'll understand, you know what I mean, and then we could just keep moving. All right, so chapter 29 and verse 1. And I'm going to read down to verse 9. Now, this is Jeremiah receiving a word of the Lord. And it says here, Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 1. Now, these are the words of the letter that Jeremiah, the prophet, sent from Jerusalem unto the residue of the elders, which were carried away captive, and to the priests, and to the prophets, and to all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had carried away captive from Jerusalem to Babylon. After that, Jeconiah, the king, and the queen, and the eunuchs, and the princes of Judah and Jerusalem, and the carpenters and the smiths were departed from Jerusalem by the hand of Elisha, the son of Shaphan, and Gemariah, the son of Hilkiah, whom Zedekiah, king of Judah, sent unto Babylon to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, saying, now this is talking about the letter that the Lord sent by Jeremiah to those that had already been taken captive by King Nebuchadnezzar. Jeremiah sent them this letter. And in this letter, he's going to tell you what's read in this letter. It says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, unto all that are carried away captive. Because remember, I told you earlier on the other video that all the children of Israel didn't go into captivity all at one time. The king came and took some, and then he would go back to his homeland. He would come back and take a few more thousand, and then he would go back, and he did that repeatedly until he ended up taking them all. All right, so I'll start back at verse 4. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, unto all that are carried away captive, whom I have caused to be carried away from Jerusalem unto Babylon. See, the Lord did this. He says here, build ye houses, and dwell in them, and plant gardens, and eat the fruit of them. Take ye wives, and begat sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons, and give your daughters to husbands, that they may bear sons and daughters, that ye may be increased there and not diminished. And seek the peace of the city, whether I have caused you to be carried away captive. I want y'all to keep understanding that the Lord did this. He's saying, I caused you to be carried away captive. And I'm going to keep reading. And he says in verse 7, and pray unto the Lord for it. He means pray for the peace of that city, for in the peace thereof shall ye have peace. So even in the captivity, I'll stop right there. So even in their captivity, those children of Israel that put their necks under the yoke of the king of Babylon, the Lord told them, hey, build houses, plant vineyards, and, marry your sons and daughters off to other Israelite men and women. So, excuse me, so that y'all can be increased. Now, let me show you. Let's see. Let's see. Hold on one second. Y'all bear with me. I kind of got thrown off a little bit. Hold on one second. Okay, I had to go and find that. Okay, so now let's go and show you the flip side of how the Lord, the flip side of the Lord keeping the children of Israel that put their necks under the yoke of the king of Babylon. We're gonna go to chapter 24, and I'm gonna go ahead and read the whole chapter. It's chapter 24, Jeremiah chapter 24. We're gonna start at verse 1, and I'll read the whole thing. And it says here, this is Jeremiah speaking. The Lord showed me and behold, 2 baskets of figs were set before me, before the temple of the Lord. After that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away captives. See, this is talking about the captives. This is after the king of Babylon had carried away captive Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and the princes of Judah, with the carpenters and smiths from Jerusalem, and had brought them to Babylon. 1 basket had very good figs, even like the figs that are first ripe, and the other basket had very naughty figs, which could not be eaten. They were so bad. Then said the Lord unto me, What seest thou, Jeremiah? And I said, Figs. The good figs, very good, and the evil, very evil, that cannot be eaten. They are so evil. Again the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, Like these good figs, so will I acknowledge them that are carried away captive of Judah, whom I have sent out of this place into the land of the Chaldeans, for their good. For I will set mine eyes upon them for good, and I will bring them again to this place, to this land, and I will build them and not pull them down, and I will plant them and not pluck them up. And I will give them an heart to know me, that I am the Lord, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God, for they shall return unto me with their whole heart. And as the evil figs, which cannot be eaten, they are so evil, surely thus saith the Lord, so will I give Zedekiah, the king of Judah, and his princes, the residue of Jerusalem, that remain in the land, and them that dwell in the land of Egypt, and I will deliver them to be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth for their hurt, to be a reproach, and a proverb, and a taunt, and a curse in all places whether I shall drive them. And I will send the sword, I will send the sword, the famine, and the pestilence among them, till they be consumed from the land that I give unto them and to their fathers. Okay, I'll stop right there. So see, there you see, the Lord, those Israelites that didn't want to be, even though they had already messed up, and the Lord told them that he was going to bring trouble upon them, they still fought against the trouble that the Lord brought upon them. And they tried to war against King Babylon and tried to run and go to various places to hide and things of that nature. But the Lord told all Israel, y'all going into this captivity, and ain't nothing y'all can do about it. So he said, when y'all go into this captivity, I want y'all to put y'all necks under the yoke of the Babylonians, under the king Babylon, and serve him. Just like every other nation that the Lord put under the neck, had to put their necks under the foot of the king of Babylon to serve him. Because God gave him rulership over the world, over the earth at that particular time. But they didn't want to do it. So therefore, they had to suffer the bad end, or the bad side of those curses, while this captivity was going on, while the other children of Israel that went willingly and put their necks under the foot of the king of Babylon, they lived good, and the Lord watched over them. And that same thing applies to us today. Here in America, when we first came over, that's y'all you got to understand what God is saying here. That sword is still being put upon us. That's why today you have some of our people that are hard-headed, that don't mind getting in trouble. They like doing the evil things that they do. Those are still some of the same people that God is talking about, even from these days of Jeremiah. All right. So, and well, let me give you another example of what God means in reference to the good figs and the bad figs. And we're going to go to Ezekiel chapter 5. Ezekiel chapter 5. And this here is going to give you an illustration and show you how the Lord not only did it in the days of Jeremiah, but even in our days. And I didn't want to go here, but I had to go. And I went into it just because I started talking about, the children of Israel being in captivity and under the Nebuchadnezzar. I wanted to save this for later, but I'll go ahead and bring it out now. Now, this is in reference to all of Israel going into captivity when they fled Jerusalem. Even though we had some good men and some good women, good children, and so on and so forth, that were righteous, being that the Lord cursed all of Israel, all Israel. This is the reason why, well, all Israel had to suffer. This is the reason why when you see brothers out there on the streets, out there on the corners teaching, Israelite brothers, and they're trying to enlighten every Israelite, every person that they believe or assume to be an Israelite that walk their way or come by, they're trying to indicate to them that we all have to get it together before the day of the Lord come, because in other words, we all need each other, because when God punishes Israel, he will punish you individually too, but when the Lord punished Israel, we all suffer. All of Israel had to go into captivity. I'm going to show you that here, because we're going to go to, like I said, Ezekiel chapter 5 and verse 1. And we're going to read down to verse 4. All right? And then it says here in verse 1, and thou son of man, take thee a sharp knife, take thee a barber's razor, and cause it to pass upon thine head, and upon thy beard. Then take the balances to weigh, and divide the hair. I think I missed something. Let me read that again. And thou, son of man, take thee a sharp knife, take thee a barber's razor, and cause it to pass upon thine head, and upon thy beard. Okay, I didn't. Then take the balances to weigh, and divide the hair. Thou shalt burn with fire a third part in the midst of the city, when the days of the siege are fulfilled. And thou shalt take a third part and smite about it with a knife, and a third part thou shalt scatter in the wind, and I will draw out a sword after them. So I want you to understand something here. You know, I know a lot of brothers speak about 2/3 of Israel being destroyed and things of that nature. But right here, he's showing you that 1/3 that was burned in the mist, and the other 1/3 that he told him that thou shalt take, and thou shalt take a third part and smite about it with a knife, and a third part thou shalt scatter in the wind, and I will draw out a sword after them. That has already taken place, okay? And the Lord basically showing you that he scattered 1/3 of Israel. And that scattering in the wind is being scattered into all the 4 countries of the earth, into slavery. And I'm going to keep reading to get to the point. I just wanted to say that, but to get to the point that I wanted to make in reference to even all the good Israelites had to go into captivity. In verse 3, it says, thou shalt also take thereof a few in number, and bind them in thy skirt. Now, when he says thou shalt take a few in number, he means a few pieces of the hairs that he had Ezekiel to cut off of his beard and off his head. He's saying, take a few pieces of that hair and bind them up in your skirt. And then verse 4, it says, then take of them again. Now he's saying, I'll explain it while I'm reading it as I go along. Now he's saying those pieces of hair, those few pieces of hair that you put in your skirt and bound up and put in your skirt, now take them out of your skirt again. And then I'm going to continue in verse 4, and then he says, and cast them into the midst of the fire, and burn them in the fire. Here's the point. For therefore shall a fire come forth into all the house of Israel. But you see, so all Israel had to go into captivity. It didn't matter if you were righteous or not. But now this right here is in reference to, because as you go along and keep reading, and you go down and keep reading further on in the book into different chapters, it's going to show you that that's talking about the captivity that our foreparents had to go into when they came over here in America. But I'll stay away from that for the time being. But I just wanted to point out that all Israel had to go in captivity. But those that he bound up in his skirt, those are the same ones that, in reference to Jeremiah, it's not. I'm not saying they're the same people, but well, if you understand regeneration, you'll know that they are the same people. But that's the same thing that Jeremiah is talking about when he said the good figs, when he said he saw the good figs and the bad figs. Those that the Lord bound up in, that he had Ezekiel to bind up in his skirt, that's a hedge of protection. He's letting you know, I want these to be shielded and protected, even though they're going to go into captivity, because they have to go, because all Israel sinned and all Israel has to go. But I want these that I have you bind up in your skirt. That's going to be, that's a cloak or a sign that these are going to be kept or preserved or reserved for a specific time, so to speak. I'll just make it say it like that. But I want you to throw those back in the fire too, because when that time comes, when Israel goes into captivity, they're going to. All right. So now let me move on, because I'm taking a little too long explaining what I'm trying to do here and get to where I'm going. All right. So now, with that being said, we're gonna go to the next curse, which is, if I could remember where I was. I think I was at verse 33, so now we're going to look at verse 34. Verse 34 reads, this is Deuteronomy 28, verse 34, it says, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. So that's just continuing from verse 33. And the way to explain that is just saying, after we see the fruit of the land and the labors, shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and cursed always. I think I skipped that verse. But nevertheless, that's just basically saying, when we see this, we're going to be pretty much, mad about it, but ain't going to be nothing we can do about it. All right? So we're going to go to verse 35. The Lord shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. So this is the same thing that it's talking about when the Lord said he would smite thee with the botch of Egypt. That's all that's saying. All right? To make it simple, so I can keep moving along. Now, verse 36, it says, the Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. Now, let me show you first off where the king went into captivity in the book of Jeremiah. All right, so we're gonna go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 27 and verse 20. And this is not one king. Many of our kings went into captivity in those days. Okay, chapter 27, Jeremiah chapter 27 and verse 20. And it reads, and it's just pretty much getting straight down to the point. Which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, took, and in verse, I'll start at 19 then. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, concerning the pillars, and concerning the sea, and concerning the bases, and concerning the residue of the vessels that remain in the city, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, took not, when he carried away captive Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, from Jerusalem to Babylon, and all the nobles of Judah and Jerusalem. So that's just one of the kings that he took. And throughout the history, as you read along, that wasn't the only king that he took. He took quite a few of them. So that covers the king, because it doesn't matter what time frame it was. They was, in other words, in those ancient days, when those kings of Israel were taken, with us being here in America, we're still Israel. Those kings that were taken in those days, in those ancient days, they're still kings of Israel. Those are still our kings that were taken. So, and the reason I'm saying it that way is because I've heard, and I know some people would say, they would look at us today over here in America and they would say a question, well, where's the king of ours that was taken into captivity? It doesn't matter that he was taken thousands of years ago. He's still a king of Israel. Okay? So now, and if you want to, well, I'll just leave it at that. So now we'll just go to verse 37. Okay? And verse 37 reads, "And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whether the Lord shall lead thee." And that just basically goes into an astonishment. Remember, I showed you an astonishment just basically being you being surprised or somebody else being surprised. And you know how other nations look at us in astonishment when they see our people carrying on the way that they carry on, even today. It happened then and even today. And it's, in their minds, it's kind of like, wow, I don't understand why these, why they carry on the way that they carry on, you know. So, and when the scripture says a byword, you know, being called out of the name that we truly have, our true name, which is Israel, whether it's of the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Issachar, Manasseh, whichever tribe you're of, our true name is Israel. And we are in the nations where the Lord scattered us. So I go to verse 38. And then now this, like I said, some of these curses, they are evident here in America, which I'm gonna elaborate on sometime around the end of this video, just to show you the comparisons, which we all know if we know the history. But I'm just showing you the point that I want to make is, how did they transition? How do you make these curses fit not only the Israelites in the days of Jeremiah, but also those of our people that were here in America? That's the point that I want to make, and that's what I want to get around to. But I want to go to verse 38 right now, and it says, "Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shall gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it." Now remember, the Lord said that He would hit it. Well, we're gonna deal with it in the scriptures. Let's go to Amos, which we've went over this verse once before. Amos chapter 4 and verse 10. And I hope that, you know, I know I move slow anyways. I read slow and everything. So I hope y'all guys have your Bible and reading along, or at least consider the precepts and get your Bible and then go back and apply Acts 17 and 11. How that they searched the scriptures daily to find out whether those things that they said were true. So when you go and you get your Bible and you look at your precepts and look at these scriptures and read them for yourself, and then, you know, examine the things that I've said and that I'm saying, and see if they line up. And that's all there is to it. And Lord willing, you understand it. All right. So we're going to Amos chapter 4, verse 10. All right. And it says in verse 10, "I have sent among you the pestilence after the manner of Egypt. Your young men have I slain with the sword, and have taken away your horses. And I have made the stink of your camps to come up unto your nostrils. Yet," let me read 9 and 10. Verse 9. Amos chapter 9, and I'll read verse 10. "I have smitten you with with blasting and mildew, when your gardens and your vineyards and your fig trees and your olive trees increase, the palmer worm devoured them. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. I have sent among you the pestilence after the manner of Egypt. Your young men have I slain with the sword, and have taken away your horses, and I have made the stink of your camps to come up unto your nostrils. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord." Okay, so there you go. How verse 38 says, "Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shall gather but little, for the locust shall eat them." The Lord's letting you know right there in Amos, in chapter 4, verse 9, how he had smitten them after the manner of Egypt, how he sent the locust, and it tells you even there, it says the palmer worm had eaten all your garden and your trees and things of that nature. But how he smitten them with the manna of Egypt and all that, how the Lord sent the locusts in the days of the Egyptians, and how the locusts ate up all of their trees and fruits and things of that nature, and all that they had, the crops basically. Okay, and so with that being said, we're just gonna move right along and go to verse 39. It says, verse 39, thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shall neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. I'll keep reading. Verse 40, thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coast, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit. Okay, so I'll stop right there. So verse 37, verse 38, and 37, 38, 39, 38, 39, and 40 pretty much goes together. So those verses that I just read in Amos chapter 4, verse 9 and 10, pretty much covers those curses. So we'll move right along and go to verse 41. Thou shalt begat sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Now remember, I just showed you that in Jeremiah and Ezekiel. So this is what I mean by when certain curses come up, how they're repeated curses. The same precept that shows that curse taking place covers that curse, even though it's a repeated curse. All right. Again, so now we'll move right along to verse 42. All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. All right, we dealt with that already. So verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. Now I just explained this. We all have understanding enough to know that the children of Israel, when they led, they had everything in their own hands and everything was theirs. They didn't need anybody to do anything for them. So common sense tells us that when we read this verse and it says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low, that means at some point they're going to, let me keep reading to verse 44. And it says, he shall lead thee, and thou shalt not, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. So that's basically saying that the other nations that are about you and around you, they're going to get above you. Remember, early on in the first video where I showed you where the Lord told the children of Israel that if they would hearken to his voice and his word and keep his commandments, that he would set them on high, above all the nations of the earth. So when they broke his commandments, this is the result of them not keeping his commandments. And so eventually the Lord ended up putting them below the other nations. So now I read verse 45, and it says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. And that pretty much stated what I just mentioned just a minute ago as to the reason why the children of Israel were brought low, why they were brought low, and the other nations got above them, and they became the tail. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. At least if you have the understanding of it, and you read it, and you can see it, it will make sense to you. Okay, now I'll go to verse 46. Now, while I read verse 45, I got to slow down, because sometimes I feel like I'm getting a little too anxious, and then I start jumbling my words up and mixing stuff up, and I overlook stuff that I'm, trying to read, and I'm overlooking my notes, and I'm missing certain things, so I don't want to give you things out of sequence. So let me try to slow down and go back to a slower state, and just try to present it a little bit more smoother, rather, and clearer, even though it may be slow. So just bear with me. So let me go back to verse 45, because these curses tie together. The statements that he's about to make from verse 45, 46, 47, and 48, they pretty much tie together, okay? So let me back up and go back to verse 45 and read it, and I'll read them all together. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. And they, when it says they, that means the curses. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. It's talking about your children. And I want to come back to this later on down the line in the lesson, but just to point out at the time, right now, when it talks about, well, you know what? I'll move on and I'll just come back to it. Verse 47: because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. So this is basically saying that all the things that we ever had need of, we were supposed to serve the Lord. And the way that we serve the Lord is to keep his laws, statutes, and commandments in righteousness, and abide according to, all that he commanded us to do for all the things that we want. All right, that's all we had to do. But we wanted to go after the imagination of our own hearts. So that's why we ended up in the position that we were in the days of Jeremiah, and even now today. So now we're going to go to verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee. Now consider that the Lord is saying to the children of Israel, you're going to serve your enemies. So he's letting you know that we do have enemies, in spite of, how cordial we all may be with others. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it doesn't mean that you have to be hateful, derogatory, because remember, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, they were all in captivity under their enemies. Those men that took them into captivity, they weren't friends with them. They weren't friends to them. They did what the Lord sent them to do. They came as enemies and they conquered Israel, and they put them in captivity, and which is the same state of being that we're in right now today. Those of us that are in the lands of our captivity, that be Israel, if you believe you are, and if we are Israel according to the scriptures and the curses, then, and it doesn't matter if you're here in America or wherever you may be, because the Lord scattered us throughout the four corners of the earth. Then the Lord is letting you know that, yeah, you were given into captivity into the hands of your enemies. And that's just the truth of it. Like I said, it doesn't mean that you have to be hateful or spiteful to anyone. This is the work of the Lord. You read the scriptures earlier yourself where God said he did it. In fact, I want to touch on this verse right here once again. Verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee. It said that the Lord shall send against thee. So you got to think about that. Because if you want to be upset and mad at somebody, then you got to be upset and mad at the Lord, because he's the one that did it. Now, I'm going to show you, if I touch on it, I'll show you where the enemies messed up and how they made the mistakes that they made, which is going to cause the judgment that they're going to get later on down the road to come upon them, because they didn't have to entreat us with evil, and they don't have to entreat us with evil, but yet they choose to. So that's going to be the burden that they have to bear. But the point that I'm making here is that we went into captivity because we broke God's commandments and his laws, and we wanted to go after the imagination of our own hearts, meaning our minds. So the Lord said, I'll read it again, because it's sometimes when some of our people will look at these verses and they'll say, nah, God don't do that. God is not. That's the God that you've been taught to know of, being here in this land or in whatever captivity you're in. you've been taught to believe and think that God is not that kind of a God. But when it's right in the scripture. But when you read it, you'll see it, and you'll see it word for word. And you understand English language, and you'll read it word for word. And yet in your mind and your words and what you speak out of your mouth, you'll still say, that's not God. God is not that kind of God. God wouldn't do that. When we read the history of the children of Israel and what happened to them in the last couple of videos in the days of Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Daniel, and God said he did all of that, and you can't deny it because it's right in the book. And history even shows it. Okay? So before I get stuck here, I want to carry on and continue to move on so I can get through this lesson. Okay, but I'll read verse 48 again. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemy, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, meaning for food, and in thirst, meaning for drink, and in nakedness, meaning for clothing, and in want of all things. For anything that you have need of, you have to serve your enemies, meaning that you're going to have to rely on your enemies, because now you're no more in the position that God said you would be in if you kept his commandments, meaning he would put you above all the nations of the earth. You're not in that position anymore, Israel, because you chose to do after the imagination of your own mind and neglect the commandments of the Lord. So these are the things that God caused to fall upon us. All right. So now when the scripture says in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, remember, Israel had their own land. They had their own cattle. They had their own wells that they drank from. And everything else, they made their own clothing. You know, when you go back into the scriptures and you know the history, they made everything that they needed for themselves. The Lord was with them. So now, being that they went into captivity, the Lord took all of that away. Okay? So now we're going to go to, I'm just going to finish up in verse 48. It says, and he, meaning that enemy, shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Meaning, when the enemy takes you into captivity, will put you into captivity, they're going to take you into captivity with a yoke of iron around your neck. And that's very familiar. And we all know it. We know the history of it. We know that it happened to African Americans, so to speak, that were brought here in America in 1619. And even throughout the historical pictures and photographs and TV shows that we can look at, movies, we see that our people, black people, so to speak, African Americans, were shackled with yokes of iron around their necks. And the term, what it means, until he have destroyed thee, is just basically until he's destroyed you to the point where you don't know who you are, what your nationality is, your name, what your heritage is, your culture, your true heritage and culture, where you're from. You know, all of those things are gone now. So once that happens, you're just complacent in the state of life that you're in after you become assimilated. And that's all there is to it. That's just what that's talking about, okay? And so now I'm going to jump to verse 49, which pretty much go down into verse, 52. Okay, we're moving along here. And I'll read verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far. Now remember, early on, in one of the verses where I read to you, it said that the Lord would bring a nation to you to you from far. But in this verse, it's being a little bit more specific. It's going to say, it's going to tell you here in a minute. And I'll read it again. Verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth. Now it says from the end of the earth. As swift as the eagle flieth. That means it's just going to be swift and get here to wherever they're coming from. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. I know we like to relate it to, a particular nation, but each one of those nations had that same symbol. So if you want to apply that, then, that's up to you. But verse 50, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. It didn't matter if you were a young man or an old child. A old man or a young child. they had no care for you. And then it says in verse 51, and he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flock of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, whether thou trust it, throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee, meaning the land of Israel, the land of, that God had given you. Okay, now, right here is where I want to show a turning point. Okay, now, we know, just based on reading the history of it here in the Bible, that it happened to the children of Israel in the days of Jeremiah. And I want to go to a verse to show you that real quick. Let's go to, hold on one second. Jeremiah chapter 16. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 16 and verse 9. Let's see. I think that's all I want out of it. Maybe I might read now. Let's see. 16 and 9. I think I got. Hold on one second. Let me make sure I got the right verse. Okay, now, yeah, I'm good. Now, remember, all these things and all these prophecies that the Lord gave Jeremiah, he was letting him know, to let the children of Israel know that these things would happen. And so here what I'm reading to you right now in reference to, this is where I'm going to start showing you that these things that these prophecies have a double meaning. And they're not only talking about one particular point in history. Okay, so we're going to start at verse verse 9, chapter 16, verse 9. It says, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, behold, I will cause to cease out of this place in your eyes. He's telling Jeremiah, and in your days. So he's letting you know right here, Jeremiah, these things are going to happen to when your eyes are going to see these things, and in your days, the days of life that you live. Okay, in your days, I'll read it again. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, behold, I will cause to cease out of this place in your eyes, and in your days, the voice of mirth, and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt show this people all these words, and they shall say unto thee, wherefore hath the Lord pronounced all these great evils against us? Or what is our iniquity? Or what is our sin that we have committed against the Lord our God? Now, I'm going to stop right there. Well, I can read the next verse. Just one more. Verse 11. Then shalt thou say unto them, because your fathers have forsaken me, saith the Lord, and have walked after other gods, and have served them, and have worshipped them, and have forsaken me, and have not kept my law. I'll add one more. Verse 12. And ye, talking about them presently, have done worse than your fathers. For behold, ye walk every one after the imagination of his evil heart, that they may not hearken unto me. Now I'll stop right there, verse 12. You see, again, this is why the Lord brought judgment upon the children of Israel. And the point that I want to make out to you is that these things happened in the days of Jeremiah. So nobody can go back, nobody can say, well, no, this is going to be at a latter time. This happened in the days of Jeremiah. And it's because the children of Israel didn't hearken to the voice of the Lord, and how they did not keep God's law. Neither our forefathers did, nor did they in the days of Jeremiah. So now, right here is where I want to show you where this thing is going to happen again. But, so now remember, when it happened in the days of Jeremiah, when everything was torn down, when the Babylonians came, and hold on 1 second, let me make sure I'm going in the right direction here. Well, let me get to it. I want to show you in the days of Christ. So let's go to New Testament. Let's go to Luke, chapter 21. Okay. All right. Luke, chapter 21. Let's see. We're gonna start at verse 20. Now I want to try to explain this the right way so that I don't screw anybody up or have anybody. I don't want to be all over the place either, because sometimes when you have all these scriptures and all these verses, and then you try to remember, what verse and where to put them, where to place them, so that people can get the understanding. Because you got to remember, the scripture said precept upon precept, and the scripture said that even David said, through thy precepts I get understanding. So these precepts have to be precept upon precept, here a little and there a little, and things of that nature, and they have to line up so that you can paint the picture, so that the reader or the hearer can understand, see what it's saying and understand. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to line these scriptures up, these precepts up, so you can see what the scriptures are talking about. And Lord willing, hopefully you understand. So now remember that the Lord said in the days of Jeremiah that he was going to send a nation from far. And you know what? Hold on 1 second. Did I finish reading that? I think I did. I kept reading down to verse 52. Okay, yeah. So now I want to show you a parallel to that in the days of Christ. Because remember, it said that, let me go back to it real quick. Let me find it. It was talking about the fenced cities that they were going to be besieged in their gates. So let's go to, we're going to start in the book of Luke, chapter 21, and let's start in verse 5. Okay, and I'll read in verse 5. Let's see, of truth. And as some speck of the temple Well, you know what? I'll start at verse 1. It ain't gonna hurt me to start at verse 1, because it'll get me to the point. I'll start at verse 1. And he looked up and saw the rich men casting their gifts into the treasure. And he saw also a certain poor widow casting in their 2 mites. And he said, of a truth, I say unto you, that this poor widow hath cast in more than they all. For all these have of their abundance cast in unto the offerings of God, but she of her penury hath cast in all the living that she had. And as some speck of the temple, that didn't have anything to do with where I'm going, but nevertheless, and it says as verse 5, and as some speck of the temple, how it was ordained with goodly stones and gifts, he said, this is Christ. It says, he said, meaning Christ, as for these things, verse 6, as for these things which ye behold, the days will come in thee, which there shall not be left one stone upon another, that shall not be thrown down. Okay? So, and then they went on into asking him, and they said in verse 7, and they asked him, saying, Master, but when shall these things be? And what sign will there be when these things shall come to pass. Now, the Lord is talking about the temple, the city, and everything being torn down. That's what he means by when he said that not one of these stones are going to be left upon one another. They all be thrown down. So I'm going to jump over to verse 20. Now, before I start reading, remember the temple got torn down in the days of Nebuchadnezzar when they fled. And I want to show you how when even though we're in the days of Christ and the temple is standing again already, so you think to yourself, well, how is that so if the temple was already torn down in the days of Nebuchadnezzar the king when he took the children of Israel into captivity, and now we jump all the way up to the book of Luke in the New Testament in the days of Christ, and the temple is standing again, and it's going to be torn down again because Christ just said it, that the time is going to come that not one of these stones are going to be upon another. They shall all be thrown down. So let me go into it, and then I'm going to read what Christ is talking about, and then I'm going to come back and show you how they got back into the kingdom in order to rebuild the temple. All right? And then I'm going to come back to some of the things that Christ is talking about in reference to what's going to happen with the kingdom and thereafter. All right? So let's go. Verse 20. This is chapter 21, verse 20. And when you shall see Jerusalem, remember he was talking about the stones being cast down early on in verse 6. And now this is verse 20. He says, and when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, meaning armies that are coming to war, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Jerusalem flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Okay, so I'll stop right there. Now, if Christ is talking about the temple being torn down and the children of Israel being taken into captivity, well, that's the same thing that Jeremiah was telling the children of Israel in his days and times before Nebuchadnezzar came in and took them. You know, when he was the Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Hosea and all the men of the Lord were going around trying to tell the children of Israel to repent and get your lives in order, because the Lord is getting ready to bring a nation against this place, and we're going to begin to go into captivity and serve these other nations, meaning the king of Babylon, the king of the Medes and the Persians, the king of the Greeks, and then that fourth kingdom, which I'm going to show you what that fourth kingdom is in time. So now here you have Christ basically saying the same thing, because the children of Israel had already gone into captivity in the days of Babylon. So now here you have Christ saying in verse 24 that they're going to fall by the edge of the sword, the same thing that Jeremiah said, and then they're going to be led into captivity into all nations. Now, this is Christ saying all nations. I want y'all to pay attention and remember how the Lord told Ezekiel to take that hair and chop it up and throw it up in the wind, because that's representing being scattered into all nations, just like what Christ is saying right here in verse 24. And ye shall be led away captive into all nations. Okay, same thing that Jeremiah was saying, that the children of Israel were going to go into all nations. And remember, the Lord said that I will call for all the families of the earth. And remember early on in the other video, I told you that at that particular point in time, King Nebuchadnezzar had dominion over that realm of the earth in his time. So at that particular point in time, that verse where it said that was his dominion, he wasn't talking about America at that particular point in time. He was just dealing with the other kingdoms in his dominion. Even though he, throughout what he's saying throughout the prophecy, is talking about all the families of the earth. But at that time, it was only talking about those that were near and close to his time frame. And then it goes into the other families of the earth as time go on. All right, so now let's try to tie this together and show you how this means the same thing and how it's making reference to the same thing that Jeremiah is saying. So let's go to real quick. Let's go to Ezra. That's Ezra for those that, if you don't know, Ezra. And we're gonna go to chapter 1 in the book of Ezra. I gotta find it myself. Ezra chapter 1. Then we're gonna read down to verse 11. All right. Just to show you here, what you know what? I might not have to read all of that, man. That's a lot. Hold on a second. Okay, we'll do Ezra chapter 1, verse 1 to 3. And what I'm showing you right here is this is after the days of King Nebuchadnezzar, after he took them into Babylon. And not only, remember, I showed you earlier about the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had the dream of, and then the ram that Daniel had the dream of, and then the he-goat, and then the fourth beast. I'm sorry, not the he-goat, but he had a dream about the he-goat just as well. And he also had a dream about the leopard that had the 4 heads. Now, and I told you that in the dream that the king had, the head of gold was King Nebuchadnezzar, which was his kingdom, and the arms and the chest of, I think it was silver, was the second kingdom, which was the Medes and the Persians, and the belly of brass and the thighs of brass was the third kingdom, which was the kingdom of the Greeks. And then the legs of iron and the feet of iron and clay was the fourth kingdom. So right now, you're going to see the second kingdom in Ezra right here, that the children of Israel went into captivity to after they came out of the captivity of the Babylonians. Because remember, the ram that Daniel saw, and he said that the ram pushed northward, westward, and eastward, conquering. And the bear also that he saw in his second dream, that had the 3 ribs in his mouth, that the spirit said to him, devour and conquer. That was war. It's talking about war. So that kingdom of the Medes and the Persians came up against Nebuchadnezzar. And they took Nebuchadnezzar down, and they took the children of Israel into captivity, because they had rulership over they had dominion. Even the scripture says that they had dominion over the earth. And then the Greeks came in after them, which I'm going to show you that too. I'm showing you how the children of Israel went from captivity to captivity, and how we ended up where we are today. All right. In verse 1, this is Ezra chapter 1, verse 1. It says, now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia. Oh, well, now we're in Persia. What happened to Nebuchadnezzar? This is the second kingdom, or the ram that David saw. And it says here that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia. Now, this is the Lord, because you know God made us all. God made every man, every beast, everything of the earth is God's. He made it for his purpose and for his pleasure. So if he wants the Persians to be the king a king of dominance to conquer the Babylonians and to take the children of Israel into captivity. That's what the Lord had him do. And guess what? The king of Persia is still God's man if God want him to be his, because God can do it all. God can do whatever he want to do. So here it says, I'll start again from the top and I'll read down. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled. These are the things that, meaning that these are the things that Jeremiah spoke about. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing. Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Who is there among you of all his people? His God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house of the Lord God of Israel. He is the God which is in Israel. So now I'll start right there. This is the king of Cyrus saying, because just like the Lord came to the king of Babylon in a dream and gave him a vision, the Lord came to King Cyrus just as well. And he put the spirit on the king of Cyrus to cooperate with the children of Israel to allow them to get all the goods that they needed, meaning supplies, trees, all kind of stuff. You need wood to cut down wood, to chop down wood, to build houses, to build up the temple and things of that nature. So the Lord allowed his spirit to be upon King Cyrus to be able to help the children of Israel, to give them all that they needed, not just him, but from all the other providences that he had under his rulership, so that they could go back into Jerusalem and rebuild Jerusalem and the temple. Okay? Because remember, they ended up getting into somewhat of almost a war with Sanballat, I think that was his name, because they came in and they wanted to try to, get in with the children of Israel and help build the temple again. But they said, no, we don't need your help. We're going to do it ourselves. This is of the Lord. So, but nevertheless, these men, the Lord put the spirit upon the king of Cyrus to give them all that they needed so that they could go back and build the kingdom of Israel. And I'll just to verify it and to back it up, I'll go to the same book, Ezra, chapter 2. Let me see. What I got here? Verse 1. All I want is verse 1. Now these are the children of the province, meaning the children of Israel, that went up out of the captivity of those which had been carried away, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away unto Babylon, and came again unto Jerusalem and Judah, every one unto his city. So that's letting you know that these are the same people that the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, took into captivity when he came and conquered Jerusalem. Now they're in the hands of King Cyrus, which now you have, there's the head of gold and the arms and the chest of silver, the second kingdom, or the head of gold, or that eagle that was, the wings were plucked up off of it, and God set him up on his feet and gave him a heart of man. That was Nebuchadnezzar just as well. Because remember, God took his senses away from him and they put him in a field, and he grew wings like an eagle and claws, and he ate grass. And the Lord told him, after 7 times passed, meaning 7 years, I will restore you to your kingdom. So when it says that the wings were plucked off of him and he stood him up and a heart of man was given to him, that means that the Lord set Nebuchadnezzar back in his right mind and, gave him his kingdom back. So that was the first kingdom. And then the ram is the Medes and the Persians, which is the king of Cyrus. So there you have it. So now the children of Israel went back into their own land and they restored Jerusalem. So now we're in the days of the Messiah, or Christ rather, so to speak. So Now, just to show you how, because I mentioned it to you one time before about that 70 week. I don't know, man. I might have to end up doing a fourth part. I got a lot left. About that 70 week, that vision that Daniel had, to show you how that 70 week captivity didn't mean only 70 weeks. It stretched all the way from that day and time of the Babylonian captivity all the way up until Christ, even up until today. All right, now let me give you a little insight on it. We're going to go to Daniel chapter 9 and verse 24 to 20 and 26. Let me get there. Daniel chapter 9. Not too far. All right, bear with me. Daniel chapter 9. Chapter 9, verse 24 and 26. That's all I'll read. 24, what I say? No, I'm going to read 24, 25, and 26. Now, it says here, at verse 24. Come on, Frank. Get your stuff together here. 70 weeks are determined. This is verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins. Now, this is deep. Y'all may not understand it, but and to make reconciliation. This is going into when it says here, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city, Jerusalem, to finish the transgression, meaning the desolation that they're going to bring about upon the land and the land be destroyed. And it says, and to make an end of sins, meaning Christ coming in to make an end of sins, to be that atonement for the sins of the children of Israel, and to reconcile them back to the Most High. And it says here, and to make reconciliation for iniquity. This is talking about Christ returning. This is showing you that those 70 weeks stretch, the prophecy of these 70 weeks stretch all the way up until the days of Christ. And then, and I'm going to continue reading, it says, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. And then verse 25 says, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto Messiah. So this is, I'll stop right here for a minute. So it's telling you about restoring and rebuilding Jerusalem, which is what I'm showing you right now in the book of Ezra, where they are going back into Jerusalem to rebuild it. So that's letting you know that these 70 weeks, because 70 weeks is just 70 weeks. They were in captivity way beyond 70 weeks, just being under Nebuchadnezzar. You know, so an actual 70 weeks is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so because 70 weeks is just months. But nevertheless, we're going to keep going. In fact, I'll start again, verse 25. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Now I want you to understand what that 62 weeks is. Score means 20. So if it's saying 60, that means 20, 40, and 60. So that's 60. And then it says, and 60, it says 62 weeks. So you're dealing with 62 weeks out of the 70 weeks already. To let you, and this is in the day, it says until the day, it says until, let's read this again. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the prince shall. It's letting you know that this time is going to be up until the 70 weeks is going to be up until the restoring of Jerusalem and the Messiah. Okay, the prince shall be seven weeks. So it's letting you know it's going to be 7 weeks of that time. and 62 weeks. So when you put those 7 weeks together and the 60, that's 60. So that's 67 weeks already. And the 2 weeks, that's 69 weeks. So this is letting you know that those 70 weeks, 69 of those weeks is covering the time frame from the days of the captivity of Jeremiah. Not even then. It's covering, actually it's starting from the days of the kings when the curses were poured out upon them. But it's covering all that time, the time frame all the way up until the Messiah. And then I'm going to continue to read. Now remember, there's 1 week left out of the 70. So that 1 week covers a large stretch of time as well. And I'm not going to get too deep into that. I don't want to get too deep into that. But let me continue on. And it says, the streets shall be built again. So that's letting you know that this is talking about the time frame of King Cyrus when the children of Israel are going back to rebuild Jerusalem. It says here, and the wall, even in troubled times. When it says troubled times, this is the time where Sanballat, they wanted to come back while the children of Israel were rebuilding the temple, and they tried to have war with them. That's why it's saying in troubled times, because they were trying to give them trouble even in the time when they were trying to rebuild the temple. Okay, so now verse 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. Now, remember, the 7 weeks had already passed. So now you're talking about the 62 weeks. So this is 62 weeks. And it's saying that the Messiah shall be cut off. So this is letting you know that those 62 weeks stretched all the way up until the time of Christ when he was put on the cross. And then it says, but not for himself. And when it says not for himself, it's letting you know it's for us, for the people, for the children of Israel, for their redemption and their reconciliation. All right. And then I'll keep reading. It says, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy. Now he's talking about the destruction of Jerusalem. When Christ said over in Luke, that the time when you see Jerusalem compassed about, this is what he's talking about. He said, it says here, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolation are determined. Now, I'm going to keep on moving, but I'm going to show you, I'm going to revisit that flood later on, and I'm going to show you what kingdom is going to be in play at that particular point in time, all right? So now, I want to keep dealing with not just the, well, let's see. Hold on 1 second. Bear with me for a minute. So now that we know that the children of Israel went back into Jerusalem and rebuilt the temple, now I want to show you the third kingdom. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. And I'll come back to that. Let me show you the third kingdom that came into play after King Cyrus, which was the Medes and the Persians. This is after the children of Israel went back and rebuilt the temple. They went into captivity again up under another kingdom, all right? So let me show you that. And go to the book of Daniel. Chapter 10. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me back up a little bit. Let's go to, just to show you, just to back up what happened with, just to back up Ezra, where when the children of Israel went back into their land. Let's go real quick to Isaiah chapter 6 and verse 13. Just to show you that they did come back. Even though I've already shown you in Ezra, but I meant to show you this first. Isaiah chapter 6 and verse 13. And this is, I'll just give you verse 13. It says, but yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and shall be eaten, as a teil tree, and as an oak, whose substance is in them. When they cast their leaves, meaning beginning to bud, so the holy seed shall be substance thereof. Now I'll read this again, and I'll explain it. In fact, let me back up a little bit more. Let me back up again. I want to give you the whole context of what I'm trying to make, the point that I'm trying to make, to show you, just to back up what I said a minute ago about the children of Israel going back to rebuild the city. Let's stay in the book of Isaiah right there in the same chapter, but let's start at verse 9. And then we're going to read down to verse 13, and then I'll explain it. And you'll get the picture. You'll get the point of it. And it says here in verse 9, and he said, go and tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not. And see ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their eyes heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert, and be healed. Then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted, without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. And the Lord have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. So that's the point that I wanted to make. How the Lord said that these things were going to happen until Israel was basically cast out of the land. And this was in the days of Nebuchadnezzar. And when they went into captivity for those 70 weeks that the scriptures are talking about, the land was desolate and forsaken. But verse 13 says, but yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return. And they did return. That's what Ezra was talking about in the book of Ezra, chapter 1, verse 1 to 3, and chapter 2, verse 1. This is where they came back, because the Lord put it in the spirit of the king of Cyrus to give them all that they needed to go back and rebuild Jerusalem. And that's why it's saying right here in verse 13, but yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and shall be eaten, as a teil tree. Now, when it says it shall be eaten, that just basically means that another nation is still going to come back and conquer Israel again. And Israel is going to be under the dominion of another nation, which was King Cyrus. And now let me show you the kingdom that's going to take over after King Cyrus. Remember when I showed you over in the book of Daniel, when King Daniel saw the ram that had the two horns, and one of the horns was higher than the other, and then he saw a he-goat, and the he-goat came with all of his force and knocked the ram over and stomped on it and such. Well, that's the third kingdom. That's the kingdom that took over after the Medes and the Persians took over the Babylonians. This third kingdom, which is the he-goat, took over the king of Persia and took the children of Israel into captivity. So let me show you that in the book of Daniel, chapter 10 and verse 20. All right. Now, these are the angels speaking, and they're letting you know that they're having war. And when the angels are talking about having war, it's not talking about the angels are slinging swords and doing certain things and sticking people and things of that nature. Not in this particular instance. This is talking about how us as humans are controlled by spirits through angels, by the angels, like angels and demons. And it's a real thing, how the spirit of the Lord, the Lord would allow angels to allow spirits to speak to this man or that man to do their bidding. And that's where the war comes about, between the angels and Satan and his minions, basically, to speak in a simple way to put it. And I'm going to show you this right here in chapter 20. We're going to go to verse 20. And this is talking about, this is while they're in captivity at this point in particular time. And we're going to go to verse 20. And I might have to go up. Let me read right here real quick to get my point. Then said he, Knowest thou, this is verse 20, in Daniel chapter 10. Daniel chapter 10, verse 20. Then said he, Knowest thou wherefore I come unto thee? And now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scriptures of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things but Michael, your prince. Now, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to read that again. I don't need verse 21. The only thing I really want to get you to see is, well, I don't know why I do this, but let me do this. Let me jump up to let me jump up to verse 16. And he says, this is Daniel speaking, and behold, one like the similitude of the Son of Men touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spake, and said unto him that stood before me, O my Lord, by the vision my sorrows are turned upon me, and I have retained no strength. These visions made Daniel weep, because remember, he saw everything to the end of the earth. And he was scared, man. So verse 17, for how can the servant of this my Lord talk with this my Lord? For as for me, straightway there remaineth no strength in me, neither is there breath left in me. Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me, and said, O man, greatly beloved, fear not. Just letting you know that the Lord loved Daniel. Peace be unto thee. Peace, he said, peace be unto thee, and strong. I'm sorry. Peace be unto thee, be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened, and said, let my Lord speak. For thou hast strengthened my wife. My wife just brought me in a cup of coffee and some muffins to eat. So that's going to strengthen me. Excuse me, y'all. I'm talking about Daniel being strengthened by being touched by this angel. I've been in here for over an hour or so, and I'm reading and carrying on, and here come my wife. I got a good wife. I'm telling you. She brought me. She think about me all the time, man. Almost, it's almost bringing me to tears just thinking about her. But nevertheless, it's just almost bringing me to tears just talking about it. But nevertheless, right here in verse 9, I'll start at verse 19 again. And said, O man, greatly beloved, fear not. Peace be unto thee, be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened, and said, let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Then said he, knowest thou wherefore I come unto thee? So now he's asking Daniel, do you know why I came to you? And he said, and now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia. See, he was already at war with the prince of Persia. He was with the prince of Persia, sending the prince of Persia to do the bidding of the Lord. This is what he means. In other words, they had to, like, the prince of Persia was fighting against not the Medes, but he was fighting against the Babylonians. So he had to return to go back and deal with the prince of Persia. And then now this same angel here is now saying, and when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come. Letting him know that now the prince of Greece, he's already gearing up, getting his army together and his men together to come and fight against the prince of Persia. And when he do that, he's going to conquer the prince of Persia, and then he's going to take the children of Israel into captivity. And now I want y'all to pay attention to something and understand, if the prince, or if the Grecians are the third kingdom, and when I show you who the fourth kingdom is, you got to consider and think that the children of Israel that are under the captivity of the Medes and the Persians right now, and when the Greeks come in, they're going to take them under captivity. You're going to have to reconsider who the Gentiles are in the New Testament when it refers to the Greeks, or when the verse, like the verse says, there is neither Jew nor Greek. You're going to have to reconsider your thought and your understanding on that, of who those Greeks are that the scriptures are talking about. Because remember, these are Israelites that are going into captivity under the Medes and the Persians. And when this fourth kingdom come, which by now, I guess if you got any understanding, you got to know that that's the Roman captivity. And if in the Roman captivity, the children of Israel just came out of the Greek captivity, when the scriptures are saying there's neither Jew nor Greek, you got to wonder, what Greeks is that verse speaking about? All right. So now I'll probably visit that. I'll probably touch on that a little bit later, but I just wanted to show you that the Greeks were coming in to take rule. So now let's go over to well, I'm going to show you who I'm going to show you who the fourth kingdom was, or who the fourth beast was. Let's go over to John chapter 11, verse 48 in the New Testament. And I'm kind of moving along. I'm probably about 3/4 of the way through. So bear with me a little bit longer, and I'll be there. So I appreciate y'all hanging in there with me. So let's go over to John 11 and 48. And I just want to show you the kingdom that the children of Israel were under rule of at this particular time. And remember, they were in the captivity of the Greeks, because remember, the Greeks came in after the Persian. And so right here in John chapter 11, verse 48, let's see, let me go to okay, let me start. Let me pick a starting point here, because I didn't note this real quick. I'll start at verse 46, just for the sake of time, just so I can get to the point. But some of them went their ways to the Pharisees, and told them what things Jesus had done. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees of a council, and said, "What do we? For this man doeth many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him. And the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation." I'm going to read that again. Verse 48, if we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. So now, that's letting you know that the children of Israel are under the rule of the Romans. So now, if in the New Testament, where the verse and scriptures are talking about there's neither Jew nor Greek, and at this point in time, they're under the Roman rule. So what is that letting you know of? What beast or what kingdom is this that the children of Israel are in? That means that they're in the kingdom of the fourth beast that Daniel saw. Okay? So now it's going to get a little bit more detailed as I go along. All right? Which I'm going to go right ahead on and do right now. But I want to go back to the verse in Luke. And then I want to kind of give you a little bit more understanding on some of the things that Christ was speaking about when he was talking about the desolation. All right, which is where I was showing you. That's where it took the turn and showing you now that not only where's my where I'm showing you that this is not only it wasn't only talking about the things that befell the children of Israel in the days of Jeremiah, but also in the days of Christ. Not in the days of Christ, but after Christ left. So let's go back to Luke chapter 21. And I clear it all up here in the end. Chapter 21, and I'm going to read what Christ said. And I'll expound on a few things. Okay, verse 20. Luke chapter 21, verse 20. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Now remember, Daniel said, when Daniel was speaking about the desolation, and in Daniel, we're going to go to Daniel 9 real quick. I might be getting ahead of myself. Let me see. Let me check real quick. Let me double check. So hold on one second. Mark. I'm going to check something real quick just so I can show y'all, because it's not the way it's stated right here. It doesn't state it. It states it differently in another verse. Hold on one second. Okay. No, dang it. Okay, let me clear something up real quick. Right here, when it says, and when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Now, when you go over to Mark, the book of Mark, chapter 13, verse 14, and it says, but when ye shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not, let him that readeth understand. Then let them that be in Judea flee to the mountains. This is Christ speaking, but he's saying it differently here in the book of Mark. So where when he's talking about the desolation of abomination, or the abomination of desolation spoken of in the book of Daniel, he's talking about what Daniel was talking about. Now remember, or listen, if you pay attention, what Christ is talking about, it doesn't indicate it anywhere in the scriptures, that abomination of desolation that he's talking about. So what he's speaking about is something that's futuristic. It hasn't even happened yet. It's going to happen later on down the line. And that's where when you see Jerusalem being compassed about with armies, that's what Christ is talking about. When you see Jerusalem compassed about with armies, is because of the desolation or the abomination that the children of Israel are going to set up in Jerusalem. That's going to bring about the sealing of the prophecy that Daniel was speaking about over in the book of Daniel. So with that being said, if Christ is talking about the abomination of desolation that was spoken of in the book of Daniel, he's making reference to the 70 weeks that Daniel was speaking about, that he read in the book of Jeremiah, where which I'm going to get to it in a minute, but these are of the same curses that he's speaking about when he said the curses are poured out upon us, which will be one of my next verses that I'm going to go to. And then he makes reference to the curses that Moses was speaking about. Okay, so with that being the case, it lets you know that this is speaking within the same time frame of that 70 weeks that Jeremiah was talking about. Okay, so let's go again back to the book of Luke, chapter 20, 21, and verse 20. And it reads, and when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Jerusalem flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, and all things which are written may be fulfilled. So now let's deal with the vengeance part. And we're going to go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 5, verse 9. Just to show you the kind of God that God is, where when we think that we can do things in our lives and over the course of our lives, and that, nothing, it don't mean anything. It means a lot. It means everything, to you for the betterment of your salvation, because God is going to judge us all for the things that we've done. But just to show you how God didn't play around, and how when he meant what he said he was going to do, he would do it. Verse 9 in Jeremiah chapter 5 and verse 9, it says here, shall I not visit for these things, saith the Lord, and shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this? So God let you know that this is what Christ is talking about. So the days of vengeance, that means he's getting the vengeance that Jeremiah is talking about in his days. And we're gonna back it up. We're gonna go to another verse in verse 29 in the same book, chapter 5, verse 29. Shall I not visit for these things, saith the Lord? Shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this? Now, when you read up into the book, back up into the chapters in Jeremiah, all the sins and all the things that the children of Israel did, stemming way back from the days of the kings, God let all that stuff pile up, because the scriptures say that he's long suffering, and he'll give you an opportunity to rectify yourself, or repent and get yourself back together, like he did with them. He kept sending men to them to prophesy unto them and tell them to get themselves together, but they wouldn't hear. All right, so hold on one second. Sorry about that. I had to get me a little break in there. So there you have it, in reference to the vengeance, and like I say, when the Lord said that he's going to do something, he's going to do it. It's just a matter of time, So let's go back to the book of Luke, and I'm going to finish reading it and giving a little bit of an understanding on, pointing out some of the things that Christ is talking about. So I'll start back at verse 21. Then let them which are in in Judea, flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it, depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. Now let's deal with the all things which are written may be fulfilled. Okay, that's talking about the curses that are in the book of Deuteronomy. When it talks about that all things may be fulfilled, and when you go back and you look at those curses, how the Lord said that he was gonna bring a nation from far, and how he was gonna smite them with the sword and bring about famine and all those things of that nature. God was not finished with Israel at all. Just because they suffered under the hands of the king of Babylon, and the Medes and Persians and the Greeks, and even now in the days of Christ, Christ is saying, when this time comes, when that abomination of desolation is set up, y'all are going to have to flee this land. Those 70 weeks that the Most High put upon Israel is a very long time. And a lot of us don't understand that time encompasses from those days of the Babylonian captivity up until now, really up until the days that Christ returned. If you understand what Daniel 9 and 20, 24, 25, and 26 is saying, it encompasses all of that. But you just have to understand it, which I'm not saying that I understand it all, but the Lord has given me some insight about it. And And when the Lord give me the full understanding of it, then I'll present it. And that's all. I don't want to. I'm not going to try to come up with something and make it fit where it don't fit. And I know that it's not of the Lord. That wouldn't be of the Lord to just say something and try to make it say what I wanted to say. So let's go to Daniel chapter 9 and 11. I don't want to bypass it again. So Daniel chapter 9. I want to try to speed up, but I can't move no faster than I'm able to. Okay, we're going to read that verse 11. Now this is Daniel speaking. Yea, all Israel have sinned. Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore, the curse is poured out upon us, and the oath which is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him, and he hath confirmed his words which he spake against us, and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven hath not been done as hath been done upon Jerusalem. Okay, see, so these are the things that Christ is talking about that are written that shall be fulfilled, that all things might be fulfilled. He's talking about these curses that Moses wrote about. Now you have Daniel right here in his days, and he's speaking on the curses that were written in the book of that Moses gave us in Deuteronomy. And right there when he says, yea, all Israel have sinned, have transgressed thy law, when you read verses in the scriptures in the New Testament where the scriptures make reference to all men, have sinned and things of that nature, well, only the children of Israel were given the laws to commit sins. So in that aspect, when he says all men, he's speaking about all Israel. And he makes it known in this verse right here alone. Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law. You understand? So, and it goes further to say that the Lord, he judged them, and he confirmed his words. He confirmed his words because he began to bring those curses about upon the children of Israel. And then it says, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven have not been done as have been done upon Jerusalem. So those curses that befell the children of Israel, Daniel is saying, according to Moses, and according to the visions, remember, he saw these things. No other nation of people had to go through, or will go through, or had to go through the things that the children of Israel went through. Okay, now there's a verse, not just a verse, but there's a chapter in Ezekiel that gives you a parallel of what happened in the days of Christ. Not in the days of Christ, but when Christ told the children of Israel, when they see that abomination of desolation stand in the place, and he told those to flee. The same thing is expressed in the book of Ezekiel, referencing that. And if I get an opportunity, I'll show that to you just as well. But I want to try to keep moving along. But in the curses that the Lord had poured out upon the children of Israel, to show you how God, to show you how to make sense of that, when Daniel says, yea, let's see, let me find out where it was again. When Daniel says, yea, all Israel have transgressed by thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice, therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses. So now, I think I mentioned early on in the first video that these curses that were poured out upon us were not in chronological order, and neither were they simultaneously. They didn't all happen at the same time. Now, wisdom would tell you, when you consider the words that Daniel is using, when he said the curse is poured out, the curse is poured upon us. Consider a pitcher of, say, lemonade that you have and you're pouring into a glass or whatever, or a pitcher that you're pouring water or something out of. When you pour, there's only a certain amount that comes out of that pitcher in the beginning. And as you continue to pour, more comes out. So the point that I'm making is that when just like that liquid or whatever that substance is that you have in that pitcher is being poured out, and all of it don't come out at one time, it all comes out at a particular point in time. And at some point, if you consider lemonade, a jar of lemonade, say a lemon might come out when you begin to pour. And that lemon might represent a particular curse. And as you continue to pour out of that jar or that pitcher, another lemon might come out. Well, even though those two lemons may be lemons, they didn't come out at the same time. So the point that I'm making is that one curse can befall the children of Israel in the days of Jeremiah. And just like that, another lemon came out at another point in time, the same curse can befall the children of Israel in the days of Christ, and likewise in the days that are before them, meaning in the days that our forefathers and foreparents came over here to America in slave ships. Those curses are repeated curses, and that's what I'm getting ready to go into just to show you. So let's go to, if you're familiar with the Apocrypha, let's go to 2nd Esdras. That's 2nd Esdras, Esdras. If you don't have an Apocrypha, you can just pull it up on your computer or your phone under any biblical Bible app, and just go to the original King James Version, because it was there at one point and it was removed. So let's go. Oh shoot! You know what? Give me 1 second. I gotta go get mine. No, hold on 1 second. All right. Yeah, let's go to the book of Esdras. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up real quick. I should have been ahead of myself. Hold on 1 second. 2nd Esdras, chapter 4. And we're going to go to verse 37. Just to show you how, to make sense of what I was just saying in reference to the measure that the Lord, something being poured out of a jar, or out of how Daniel said the curse is poured out upon us. When you look at Esdras, we're going to read it real quick. 2nd Esdras, chapter 4, verse 37. And then I'll read it and then I'll explain it. It says here, and it's talking about the Most High. It says, and he answered me, saying, well, where am I at? Hold on, sorry about that, y'all. Verse 37. By measure hath he measured the times, and by number hath he numbered the times, and he doeth not move nor stir them until the said measure be fulfilled. So I'll read it again. By measure hath he measured the times, and by number hath he numbered the times, and he doeth not move nor stir them until the said measure be fulfilled. So meaning, at a particular point in time, the Lord, he has things measured out the way that he has them measured out. When he get ready to pour out curses, just like Daniel said, the curse is poured out upon us. There's a particular amount of curses that are going to befall the children of Israel at a particular said time. Just like the Lord said in verse 37 of 2nd Ezra, chapter 4, he measured the times. So there's only a certain amount of curses that's going to come out, and they're going to come out in the time frame and the way that the Lord said they will come out. And then it says, the Lord would, I'll read this part. And then it says, this is about midway, and it says, and he doeth not move nor stir them until the said measure be fulfilled. So the Lord is not going to intervene or do anything to change the course of those curses or whatever time in the situation that's taking place until the full measure of that be fulfilled. And when that measure is fulfilled, then the Lord will allow things to continue on as they will. So just trying to give you some understanding on how God operates. And when you go to the scriptures and to the word, and you look at these verses, these precepts, and you understand these precepts, you understand everything that I'm saying in this lesson between the first, second, and the third lesson. That this one should be. This should be the third one. I don't plan on going any further than this. Okay, so now I want to show you something else in reference to how the Lord measure times and measure judgment and things of that nature. In the same book, we're going in 2nd Ezra. Let's go to chapter 5 and verse 42. Okay, 2nd Ezra chapter 5 and verse 42. And it says in verse 42, and he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring, like as there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first. So it's basically saying the same thing that 2nd Ezra 4 and 37 just said. When it says there is no swiftness of the first, the time is measured out, and you're not going to make it go any faster than it is. You have to suffer that judgment out. And I'm saying judgment specifically because the Lord said his judgment is like unto a ring, and a ring is a circle. So meaning, if there's just like that lemonade in that jar or in that pitcher that I was telling y'all about, how when it's poured out, you got so much of it that comes out in the beginning, and one lemon might come out, and then later on you might get another lemon to come out. Well, when you put judgment on a ring, and then you hit it and make it go. Just an analogy. It's got a starting point, and it has to go around the ring, and then it has to come back to that same spot again. So that's why the Lord is saying my judgment is like a ring. That same judgment that went out and goes through the course of the measured time that the Lord has measured out, and until it's fulfilled, and it comes back again, and then it has to go out again at another time to do the Lord's will until it's fulfilled. So that's simply all it is. And therefore, with that being said, nobody gets away from the Most High. All right, so I hope y'all understood that. And if you don't, because I'm going to move on, just go back and listen to the video or whatever, or pause it and get your Bible or your pocket and just look at it and put those verses that I've been going over, put them together and examine them and see how much sense they make to you. Okay, so now I want to give you another verse in reference to not the ring necessarily, but let's go to Job chapter 11 verse 6. All right. I don't think I even know where Job at. Oh, just passed it. Job chapter 11 verse 6, and this is in reference to the double meaning that I have been telling y'all about in reference to the curses that befell the children of Israel in the days of Jeremiah versus the days of Christ, and even in these present days and times starting from the time that our foreparents came over here to America. So let's look at Job chapter 11, verse 6. And it reads, and that he, meaning the Most High, would show thee the secrets of wisdom. Just letting you know that there's a secret of wisdom, secret to wisdom, that they are double to that which is. Know therefore that God exacteth of thee less than thine iniquities deserveth. So I'll read it again. Job chapter 11, verse 6. And that he would show thee the secrets of wisdom, that they are double to that which is. Know therefore that God exacteth of thee less than thine iniquity deserveth. So, in other words, if God exact of you less than thine iniquities deserve it, he means you deserve more for your iniquity. So let's go back to the beginning of verse 6, and it says, and that he would show thee the secrets of wisdom, letting you know that there's a secret to wisdom and the way that wisdom works. That's why when I was telling y'all earlier in the other videos that as you read Jeremiah, and he's going over the curses that the Lord was going to cause to befall the children of Israel, and then you see how, looking at those verses, how he said, and you got to pay attention to the verses, how he said, I'm going to call all the families of the earth. And you got to understand how these same things took place in Jeremiah's days. Because he told Jeremiah, I'm going to show you these things are going to happen before your eyes and in your days. And then the same thing that he's saying in the days of Jeremiah, you see happening in the days that Christ said they would happen when the desolation come about. Meaning that's when Jerusalem was ransacked and they had to flee into the mountains. And then from those various mountains, they went into other regions of the world. And from there, I'm going to show you what happened to them when they went into to those other regions of the world. They didn't get away. Okay, so, but the point is that verse 11, chapter 11, verse 6 shows you that the wisdom that the Most High is talking about, there's a double meaning to them. Meaning that there's a double meaning to the prophecies of the judgments that God was given to Jeremiah, and I'm going to show you later on how that double meaning ties in and it fits in the end. I'm going to show you, even though I'm showing you now and I'm saying it, but I'm going to give you a little bit more on it later on so that you can understand and come to the conclusion when you go back and you revisit this video or the scriptures, and you look at them and you examine them and you be like, oh man, I understand. Okay, so now I just made mention of how the Lord, how he allowed the children, and I'm probably missing out on some of the things that I know that I want to speak on because it's so much. But I just made mention of how the children of Israel had to flee, and which okay, you know what, that just came to mind. But I just made mention of how they had to flee and go into various places. How Christ said, in fact, let me go back to it, how he told them to flee into the mountains. And I want to show you something real quick and show you how these things line up with one another, and how the kingdom that the children of Israel were in at that particular point in time. So I want to show you something real quick. Let's go over to oh, come on, man. Oh, let's go over. Well, let's revisit something real quick, and I'll try to get through it real quick. Where when Christ said in Luke chapter 21, chapter 21, where he said this. He said in verse 21, then let them which are in Judea, flee to the mountains. Now, when he said flee to the mountains, now remember, I told y'all earlier that this is the fourth kingdom. So now let's go over to, and this is when this time comes, Christ told them they're going to have to flee and told them to flee into the mountains. So let's go over to Revelation chapter 12, verse 4 and 6. And I want to show you that same thing. Verse 4, Revelation 12, verse 4. I'm going to go to 6. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Well, you know what? I'll start at 1. I'm good for pulling a verse and then saying where I want to start. Then I got to start somewhere else. So let's start at verse 1, and I'm gonna read down to verse 6. Revelation 12 and 1. And there appeared, now this is John the Revelator, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet. This is Israel. And upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Those are 12 tribes. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth. That woman in this in this verse right here, speaking about Mary, and she's pregnant with the Messiah, and pained to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. Now remember when I showed y'all in the book of Daniel where when he saw the leopard that had the 4 heads and he had the 10 horns, and then out of those 10 horns a little horn came up. We ain't dealing with the little horn just yet, but the leopard that had the 4 heads and the 10 horns, well, this red dragon that John the Revelator is talking about having 7 heads, and lo and behold, he has 10 horns too, and 7 crowns upon his head, and his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars, meaning the 3rd part of the children of Israel, because remember, the woman had a crown of 12 stars. So right here it's saying, and his tail, when it says his tail, it means the remnant or the last kingdom of that red dragon. When it says his tail, meaning that little horn, put it that way. His tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the not the exact little horn, but we're gonna just this beast right here, this red dragon. This red dragon, I don't want to speak before, I don't want to get ahead of myself, so I'm just going to stay right here with this red dragon. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour the child as soon as it was born. Now, y'all ask yourself, when was Christ's mother with child? And who wanted to unalive Christ when he was born? It was Herod. What kingdom was he in? It was the Roman kingdom. They were under rule of the Roman kingdom. So the scriptures are showing you who the red dragon is and what kingdom the children of Israel were in at this particular point in time. And then it says, and she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. So it's letting you know that the Messiah, remember over in Daniel when it talked about until the Messiah come in Daniel 9 and 24, and it talked about the vision being sealed up and all that stuff. This is it right here. It's giving you the whole synopsis in short words, and in a short it's a short synopsis of what took place. It's not going through detail, it's just getting straight to the point. So this the point that I'm trying to show you is the kingdom that Christ was in at this point in time, which is the 4th beast, because it's letting you know right here that he was taken up. So this is after he passed away. And then it says, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Now I'll deal with that at another time. The 1,260 days, when the Lord enlightened me with more understanding. But for the most part, I'm trying to show you in the beginning of verse 6 right here, where it says, and the woman fled into the wilderness. Well, what did Christ say in Luke chapter 21 and 21? Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains. So what kingdom are we in at this point right here, when Christ is saying flee into the mountains? As well as in Revelation, where it's saying, and the woman fled into the wilderness. So the point is that kingdom is the Roman captivity. So when the children of Israel fled, they went to different various places. All right. So and things of that nature. So let me show you somewhat what happened to them, and from that point on. All right. Now, you know what? I might have to pull Ezekiel which I'll get to it, and I might have to backtrack a little bit just to show you that it's a parallel to what Christ is talking about. But let me I showed you the double meaning. So let me now show you what would happen to the children of Israel after they fled and went to they fled to the mountains, and then eventually they migrated and went to various places that the Lord said, they would do. Now let me show you something real quick. We're gonna go to Isaiah chapter 5. I'll show you something real quick, and I might come back to that Ezekiel thing that I was trying to tell you about. But let's go to Isaiah chapter 5, because I want to try to hurry up and get finished with this thing. It's a pretty long lesson rather. Isaiah chapter 5, and we're gonna go to verse 13. Okay, and I want to show you something. Verse 13. And I want to show you something about what this means. Okay, let's see if I want to start that first. Then we'll go over to 25. All right. Now, okay, we're going to start at verse 13. Chapter 5 and verse 13. Therefore, my people are gone into captivity. Same captivity that Christ is talking about. Same captivity that Jeremiah was talking about. Same captivity that Ezekiel is talking about. And it's going to tell you why. Because they have no knowledge, and the knowledge is the word of God, and their honorable men are famished, meaning they don't have the word of God in them, and their multitude dried up with thirst. Therefore, hell hath enlarged herself and opened her mouth without measure, and their glory and their multitude and their pomp, and he that rejoiceth shall descend into it. Now let me help you understand something here, where when the Lord is saying we're going into captivity, and then he says hell hath enlarged herself. Now I know we've been taught that there's a place that exists presently while we're on the earth right now, underneath the earth, that's called hell, where people are put when they pass away and being tortured, with a guy with a fork and things of that nature. But that's not what this is talking about here. When the scripture said, my people are going into captivity, that's what the Lord means when he's making reference to hell. And he's telling you why. He says, because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. And I'm going to show you that. I'm going to back that up in a little bit in another verse. Well, in fact, I can go to it right now. Verse 24. Therefore, as the fire devoureth the stubble, remember Jeremiah, he said, I will make my word in your mouth fire, and these people wood. And the words that Jeremiah was speaking, the things that, the curses that he was saying that was going to befall them, the judgments and things of that nature, that's the fire. And those things were going to fall upon the children of Israel. That's how they were going to get burned up. Okay, so I'll start again in verse 24. This is Isaiah chapter 5, verse 24. Therefore, as the fire devoureth the stubble, and the flame devoureth, I'm screwing myself up. Therefore, as the fire devoureth the stubble, and the flame consumeth the chaff, so their root shall be as rottenness, and their blossom shall go up as dust, because they have cast away the law of the Lord of hosts, and despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. Folks, we don't understand that we have to keep the laws of God. And our people didn't understand. They didn't do it then. And y'all see all the turmoil that the Lord caused to fall upon us. Y'all see it even to this day. You've seen it in the history, and you hear it, you read about it in the Bible. And yet we still don't want to turn to the Most High. So now let me go back to verse 13 and 14 and show you what he means by hell being enlarged. So in verse 14, I'll read 13 again. It says, therefore my people are gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. Therefore, he said, therefore hell hath enlarged herself, and opened her mouth without measure. Now, when he says hell hath enlarged herself and opened her mouth without measure, that hell that he's speaking of is not hell under the earth. Is not hell under the earth. That hell is the captivity that he's speaking about. And let me show you how to make sense of it. When he says that hell hath enlarged herself, from the days of the king of Nebuchadnezzar, when Jeremiah said, I will call for all the families of the north to take the children of Israel into captivity. Prior to that, the children of Israel, even then in those days of Jeremiah, the children of Israel went into captivity in the region of their own land, in lands round about. When they were under captivity or under the rule of other nations, it was always in their region of the world. But right here, where it says, therefore hell hath enlarged herself, that means the captivity that you're going to go into is a lot longer, and it's farther away, and it's a much broader captivity, meaning over here in this region of the world, and all the regions of the world that God said he was going to scatter the children of Israel into, meaning the four corners of the earth. That's what it means by enlarged herself. Captivity has enlarged herself. Now the captivity that you're going to go into is going to be a widespread captivity. It's not just going to be next door to Jerusalem, because remember, in the captivities that they were in their region of the world, after it was over, they always went back to Jerusalem with no problem. But now he's saying hell hath in captivity hath enlarged herself, and opened her mouth without measure. So throughout the four corners of the earth is basically what it's saying that the children of Israel is going to go into, and not without measure. The things that's going to happen to y'all, who knows? And we know through history all the things that the other nations have done to us. That without measure encompasses all the evil works that they've done to our people, our ancestors and our forefathers, and even us today. So that's what hell enlarging herself means. And hell, that hell that it's speaking about, is captivity. But I want to show you something else in reference to let's see. In reference to God not letting the children of Israel get away with what they thought they got away with, even after they hadn't made it to the days of Christ, after they had already been slain by the Babylonians and put into captivity and submission, and under the rule of the Medes and the Persians and the Greeks and the Romans. This is what the Lord said. I'm standing in the book of Isaiah, chapter 5, same chapter, but we're gonna go to verse 25. And we're going to start at 25. It says, therefore, if you look at verse 24, I just read that a little earlier. It talks about how, and you notice how then it went into them not keeping God's laws. And then it says, they despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. And now he goes into verse 25 and says, this is what's going to happen to him. It says in verse 25, therefore is the anger of the Lord kindled against his people, and he hath stretched forth his hand against them, and have smitten them, and the hills did tremble, and their carcasses were torn in the midst of their streets. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Now right there when it says for all this, meaning all that the Lord had done to them, all the evil that he did to them in the days of Jeremiah. Remember, this is prophecy that Isaiah is talking about. So at this point right here, most of it hasn't even happened yet in the days of Jeremiah and Isaiah just as well. Some of it happened, but not all of it. When Nebuchadnezzar came and took them away and all that, and all of that hadn't happened. But right here, he's saying some of it had happened, and the Lord did what he did to him. But he said that for all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. So that means that the Lord is still upset with them because of them, departing from his law and despising his word. So here's what the Lord said. He said in verse 26, and he will lift up an ensign to the nations from far. Now, if you see, I'm gonna go back to Deuteronomy just for a reference, just to pull it up. Hold on one second. Okay. Give me 1 second, y'all. Okay. Now we back in the book of Deuteronomy, and let me see, what was that? All right, now I'm gonna read this again. I never really got started good, but verse 25. And he will lift up an ensign to the nations. That means a signal from far, and will hiss unto them from the end of the earth. And behold, they shall come with speed. Now I'm going to stop right there for a moment. And then I'm going to go over to look at the curse in Deuteronomy 28, verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young. And they're going to eat up the fruit of the end. I ain't going through all of that. I've already been through it, but I just wanted you to see this is after they fled out of the land of Jerusalem. And when they fled upon those mountains, and then they migrated and went down into the interiors of Africa along the west coast, and think about it. They went along the west coast. How did those nations know where we were in order to be able to come and find us and take us up, to take us into captivity? Think about it. The Most High, that's why I tell you, when you go precept upon precept, you'll get the understanding. If the Lord has given a man understanding, he should go precept upon precept. And I pray the Lord give you all the ears to understand, the ears to hear it and understand it. When you go precept upon precept, you have no choice but to understand what the scriptures are saying. So when you look at verse 26, again, in Isaiah chapter 5, verse 26, and he will lift up an ensign, the Most High will, to the nations, to all the families of the earth, from far, and will hiss unto them from the end of the earth. Where did they come from to get us? And behold, they shall come with speed. None shall be weary, nor stumble among them. None shall slumber, nor sleep. Neither shall the girdle of their loins be loosed, nor the latch of their shoes be broken. Whose arrows are sharp, and all their bows bent. They're ready for war. Their horses' hoofs shall be counted like flint, and their wheels like whirlwind. Their roaring shall be like a lion. They shall roar like young lions. Yea, they shall roar and lay hold of the prey. The prey is Israel, and shall carry it away safe. Meaning, when it says carry it away safe, that means nobody's going to fight against them. Okay? They took us away safely without anybody fighting against them at all to try and get us back. And none shall deliver it. I'm going to go into that later on again. And then at verse 30 it says, and in that day they shall roar against them like the roaring of the sea, and if one look unto the land, behold, darkness and sorrow, and the light is darkened in the heavens thereof. Okay, so there you go. This is what happened to us after we fled out of Jerusalem and went into the mountains, and some other things happened to us as because it was a long period of time, 1,000 plus years. But the point here is, when we were in those interiors of Africa and on the coast of Africa, the Lord sent up a sign because he said his after all that he had done to us, his hand was stretched out still against us. And then he sent an ensign. He set up an ensign, or he basically gave the other nations a signal to say, okay, now it's time. Remember the measures of time, and how God have time measured out, and how he would allow things to happen, and how his judgment was like a ring. The Most High said, okay, now it's time for me to finalize this captivity. And let me send these other nations to go and get my people and take them into captivity, so that they'll know that I am God, So let's do this. I think I'm almost at the end of it. So let's jump back over to the last few curses. And then I want to get these last few curses out of the way, and then we'll be done. Okay, so let's go to I hope y'all understood, what I was saying there, and all that I brought out. If you don't, just go back and listen to this video again, and try to put it together. Okay, so let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 53 and 58. I'm gonna read all those together. Deuteronomy 28, chapter 53. I think because we left off at 52. So we're gonna read 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, and 58 all together, because they pretty much coincide with one another. And verse 53 says, and thou shalt eat the fruit of hold on. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters. Now this is them being besieged by the other nations. So it says here, and thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. So basically it's saying that y'all going to eat your own children, and the men that used to be men and fathers, you're not going to share with anybody. You're going to have those children to yourself to eat. And because y'all are distressed because of that, remember that kingdom that Christ said, when you see Jerusalem compassed about, flee into the mountains. When y'all are besieged and y'all have people surrounding y'all, you can't come out of the city now. That's why he said the ones that are in the field, don't flee and don't come back. If you're on the housetop, don't come back to get nothing. Go. Because when you get besieged and now you come out of that city, it's a done deal either way. So I'll keep reading. So in verse 55, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all his gates, in all thy gates, the tender and delicate woman, which is among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye, her eye shall be evil towards the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children, which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for want of all things secretly, in the siege and straitness, wherewith the enemy shall distress thee in thy gates, if thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy God. You see, it always comes back to us not fearing God, not doing what God said, not keeping his commandments. We had to suffer all of that, eating our own children, So I'll keep going in verse 59, which as a matter of fact, let me pull the verse. I'm sorry, I almost forgot. Let me pull the verse and the precept to give you of some examples that took place like that, where they ate their children. We're going to go to 2 Kings chapter 6 and verse 28, just to show you. 2 Kings chapter 6. I got to try to speed up a little bit now. Let's see, chapter 6. Chapter 6, verse 28. All right, 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 28. Now, this is what happened. And the king said unto her, I'll start at 27. I'm sorry, 26. God dog it, man. And as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, Help, my lord, O king. And he said, If the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor, or out of the wine press? And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman, and she answered, and she said, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. And I said unto her, On the next day, give thy son, that we may eat him. And she hath hid her son. You see, she hid her son. So there you go. Prime example of that tender woman. She ate the other lady's son, but she hid her son from her. But that's the point is, we were besieged in the gates, and the prophecy that the Lord said would happen, it took place. Okay? So now let's go to Jeremiah chapter 19, just to show you how the Lord confirmed his word. Jeremiah chapter 19 and 9. Okay. All right. I'll start at 8. And I will make this city desolate and an hissing. Everyone that passes by thereby shall be astonished and hiss because of all the plagues thereof. And I will cause them to eat the flesh of their sons and the flesh of their daughters, and they shall eat every one the flesh of his friend in the siege and straitness wherewith their enemies, and they that seek their lives shall straiten them. You see? And so that's what the Lord did to them. And they actually ended up doing these things. Okay? So now, let's go to verse 59. And some of it, like 59, I can just explain it. It says here, verse 59 says, Then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sicknesses, and a long continuance. So that's just going into the things that the Lord said he would do to them with the plagues and the things, and how he would punish them, and it would be for a long period of time. Okay? And now verse 60 says, moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt. That's the botch, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Verse 61, also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. Saying the same thing in reference to the botch of Egypt. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven, for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. There it is again, not wanting to obey the voice of the Lord. And that few in number, when the Lord scatter us, we're going to be broken up from tribe to tribe, and we're going to be in different locations in the earth. So we wouldn't be together with one another, all 12 tribes. When we were together, we were a mighty people, and we were a large people that you couldn't number, as the sand of the sea, that couldn't be numbered. We couldn't be numbered when it came down to it. But here, once the Lord scatter us, and after the Lord slay us all with famine, the sword, and pestilence, we were going to be left few in number. Okay, and then verse 63 says, and it shall come to pass that as the Lord rejoiced over you to do you good and to multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught. That's to bring you down to low, and you'll be the tail and not the head. And you shall be plucked from off the land whether thou goest to possess it, being kicked out of the land of Israel. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all nations, from one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Now think about this, how these curses happened. When the children of Israel went into captivity in those days, in the days of Jeremiah and things of that nature, and for the most part, those that knew and had understanding, they continued to serve the Lord because the Lord had a shield about them for some of them. But the ones that he had already made statement and put that judgment out on, the sword pursued them. But think about where we are today, how we have the freedom to follow any religion that we want to. And what are we doing now? Because we're not serving the Lord. We're not doing according to what God said by keeping his laws, statutes, and commandments. We're in every other religion there is pretty much in the world. Okay? And we're going to go to verse 65. And it says, and among these nations shall thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy heart have rest. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. Now think about when we first came over here to this land. Let me read verse 66 with that. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, would God it were even. And at even thou shalt say, would God it were morning. For the fear of thine heart within, wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. You see? So, and think about when our forefathers and our foreparents came over here to this land in 1619 and thereafter. They had fear of their life, and their life was in doubt every day. It's kind of like, I don't know if you like if you was a kid and you had to stay over somebody's house and it was boring as heck when you were a small kid, or you just didn't like being there or whatever it was, and you were like, man, I'll be glad when my mama come back and get me. I'm ready for this to be over with. And then say if she left for a couple of days, that night you'd be thinking the same thing. And then when the day came, you had the same mentality. I'm ready to get out of here. I'm ready to go. I'm ready for my mama to come and get me and pick me up and bring me back home. Well, that's how it was for our foreparents here. And in all the lands where they were scattered, they didn't know that their lives hang in doubt, because the people did whatever they wanted to do to us, and they did us any kind of way without regards of the young or the old. They had no consideration or concern for our lives. And you can just imagine, man, the state of life that they were in, how when at night, it was like, that was so terrible. I'd be glad when just the thought of the day coming was a glimpse of hope or happiness. But even then, when they knew that that day came about, now those other people are up and about. They're looking to do harm to you just because they could. So even then, they were just like, I'll be ready when this day is over with, and that the night fall. But all together, they had no assurance of their life, and they had sorrow of mind, trembling heart, and failing of eyes, because they couldn't see no further, than what they had. And now I want to go back and touch on one of the verses real quick before I move on, where when it said, and I don't even think that I have to, well, I'll say it in one word, in so many words. When you go back and consider all these verses and all these curses, just look at the history of what happened to the African Americans, so to speak, here in America. And there's no doubt that all these curses happened to us. And I've already given you the sequence of events and the sequence and the somewhat of a timeline as to how they happened and the double meaning of the prophecy and what happened to us after we fled out of Jerusalem, when Christ said we would flee, and the various places that we ran to, and how that the Lord put out an ensign for the nations to come and get us, and how that covered a whole 70-week period that Daniel was talking about, and those in Job 11:6, how it was a double meaning of wisdom when Jeremiah was speaking, which I'm going to show you at the end of this in just a minute, just so you'll know that, wow, he was speaking about what he was saying in the days of Babylon, he was speaking about America, basically. But I want to revisit one other verse. Let's see here, if I can find it real quick. Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm scrolling back through my verses. I'm trying to find it. Well, maybe I'll come back to it, because all it is just a verse where the Lord said, "Thy sons and daughters shall be given unto another people, and thou shalt have failing of eyes, and there shall be." Okay, here it is, verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. Now, this happened in a couple of instances. If you go back over into history, and you can look it up and look for the point of no return, they brought out people from the coast of Africa over here. And some of those people, because think about it, they took the young and they took the young and old, but for the most part, they took the young because they were healthier, younger, and things of that nature. So they could get more out of them. But the older that they took, that they didn't take and left, you would imagine that those are the mothers and fathers. And when it says that thy sons and daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the days long, can you imagine standing over there on that coast of the world and looking for your children to return, and they don't, and they're not going to return? This is pretty much what the Lord is talking about, because you look up the point of no return in Africa, and they have a whole place that they show you where we went into slavery, and it says the point of no return, and that means that our people would not go back. we didn't come back to that place. And it also goes in it aligns with when the children were taken from the mother's arms here, even in America, and sold off to another plantation and things of that nature. And they cried and looked for their children and wanted their children back, but they couldn't get them. Okay, simple as that. So now let's go to I think I'm in verse 68. Now in the morning shall say, okay, look, let's deal with verse 68 real quick. And it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now right here when it says in verse 68 where it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, well, when the scriptures make reference to Egypt, it's talking about captivity. And we're going to go to Exodus chapter 20 real quick. Exodus chapter 20 and verse 2. I'll read that real quick. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Okay, and that's it. It's letting you know that bondage is synonymous with slavery, or Egypt is synonymous with slavery or captivity. Bondage is another name for slavery or captivity. So when the Lord's saying that I brought you out, you shall go back, you shall go into Egypt again. When he made reference to Egypt, he's making reference to the condition that the children of Israel were in when they were in Egypt, meaning slavery or captivity. And he's telling you how it's going to happen. He says with ships. And we know that our ancestors came to this land, and the various lands that they were scattered into, like verse 64 says, it says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people. That happened by way of slave ships. Cargo, there was no such thing as slave ships. They were cargo ships that they haul goods in, but they utilized them to haul the slaves just as well, people. And then it says here, and continuing on, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. Now right there where it says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, that's an isolated phrase. It's isolated from, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. It stops right there. And then where it says, thou shalt see it no more again, and there, it says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. That's an isolated verse. When it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, it stops there, and then that's separate. And then when it says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, meaning when Moses was in the Mount Sinai, that's where he spake to the children of Israel. This is talking about a location. This is talking about location. That's why it says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, meaning that mountain. You're not going to see that mountain again that the Lord spoke unto the children of Israel, because now you're getting ready to go into captivity. I'm going to show you what I mean in a minute. You're getting ready to go into captivity, but into Egypt again. But this time, just like when I brought you out of Egypt the first time, and y'all came to the Mount Sinai, and y'all got the help, y'all found out that God is the God of all living, and he is y'all's help. Y'all are going to realize that this time around, when I send y'all into Egypt again, you're not getting out of this Egypt, and you're not coming back to this mountain to get instruction from the Lord and to have safety in the Lord. Okay, so now let me show you what it means, just to give you some verses to show you the indication that by the way whereof I spake unto thee, it means location. Okay, so let's go to let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 1, and we'll go to verse 19. Let me get it real quick. Okay, and I'll read in Deuteronomy chapter 1. Let me see. No, I'm sorry. I said Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 19. But first I want to read chapter 1, verse 2. And it's talking about whether, well, I'll start at 1. These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel on this side Jordan in the wilderness, in the plain over against. Now he's telling you right now, he's giving you the location. These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel. Well, this is a different location where he's now about to tell them what they had to do to go in and conquer these nations. So this is not the same location where when he told them about, well, let me read on. These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel on this side Jordan in the wilderness, in the plain over against the Red Sea, between Paran and Tophel, and Laban and Hazeroth, and Dazahab. There are 11 days' journey from Horeb, by the way of Mount Seir, unto Kadesh Barnea. So right there, when it says in verse 2, there are 11 days' journey from Horeb. Horeb is the place where they were at Mount Sinai. When it says by the way of Mount Seir, it's letting you know that that's a location. By the way of. By the way of. Just like Deuteronomy 68 is saying, in verse 68, it says, by the way whereof. Moses is basically saying, by the way that I spoke unto you, by the way whereof, in that place I spake unto thee, meaning Mount Seir, thou shalt see it no more again. Now let me show you what he meant by thou shalt not see it no more again. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 7. And I'm gonna read Ezekiel chapter 7. And I'm gonna probably start at 1 just to get the gist of what I'm trying to get to. And Lord willing, y'all pick up on it. So Ezekiel chapter 7, and I'll start at 1. Now remember I told y'all early on that when Christ said, because if you read Ezekiel chapter 7, which I don't think I'm going to go into it, but Ezekiel 7 is a parallel to what happened with the children of Israel when they were in Jerusalem, when the time came, when the Messiah was saying, flee into the mountains. This is it right here. This is the prophecy that even Ezekiel gave in reference to that, because when you read Ezekiel 7, he goes into talking about how they're going to flee the land and how they're not going to turn back and things of that nature. But it's a parallel to what Christ is talking about, meaning that y'all are going into Egypt or captivity, because remember, Christ said y'all are going to die by the edge of the sword and be taken into captivity into all nations, meaning Egypt. Well, and when y'all go into that Egypt, you're not gonna see the mountains again, is what I'm going to show you right now. When Moses said, by the way whereof I spake unto you, how Moses spake to y'all in Mount Sinai, and the Lord came down on that mountain, and he made the lightning and the voices and things of that nature, and the children of Israel were scared, and how they backed away and they told Moses to speak to them instead of the Most High. This is what he's talking about right here. I'm gonna show it to you real quick. And but nevertheless, let me start at verse 1. It says, moreover, this Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 1. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, also, thou son of man, thus saith the Lord, unto the land of Israel, an end, the end is come upon the four corners of the land. Now, this is what Christ is talking about, the same thing, because all Israel going to get punished. Now is the end come upon thee, and I will send mine anger upon thee, and will judge thee according to thy ways, and will recompense upon thee all thine abominations. And mine eye shall not spare thee, neither will I have pity, but I will recompense thy ways upon thee, and thine abominations shall be in the midst of thee, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. Thus saith the Lord God, and evil, and only evil, behold, is come. Now, when the Lord here, and I'll stop for a minute, when the Lord says, and evil, and only evil, behold, is come, it's the same thing that Daniel said, when he said the curse being poured out upon us, and the Lord's going to do to Jerusalem that has never been done to anyone else. Ezekiel is saying the same thing, and only evil. This is only going to happen to the children of Israel. Okay, so I'll keep reading. Verse 6. An end is come, the end is come. When he says the end, meaning this is it for y'all, Israel. Y'all are going to flee Jerusalem and you're never coming back. It watcheth for thee, behold, it is come. The morning is come unto thee, O thou that dwellest in the land, and the time is come. The day of trouble is near, and not the sounding again of the mountains. What do you think he means, not the sounding again of the mountains? Now that he's telling them that trouble is coming. And then he says, and not the sounding again of the mountains. Meaning, in this trouble that's facing y'all and that y'all got coming towards y'all, you're not gonna go. You're not gonna see. He says it right there. And not the sounding again of the mountains. What significance does that have in this verse or in this chapter? He's saying, and not the sounding again of the mountains. Watch this. I'm gonna go to Deuteronomy 28:68. Thou shalt see it no more again. Thou shalt see it no more again. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. When they were in trouble and they had just came out of Egypt. The Lord is now saying to them in verse 68, y'all are going into Egypt again, and it's going to be by ships. And remember, by the way of he's giving them an indication, letting them know, remember by the way that I spoke to y'all in that mountain, y'all ain't going to see that again. The Lord ain't going to fight for y'all this time around. The Lord ain't coming to talk to y'all. The Lord ain't coming to give y'all no instructions. The Lord ain't going to come and give y'all no laws, statutes, and commandments, because y'all done messed up. So Ezekiel is saying, and not the, he's saying, the morning is come, unto verse 7, the morning is come unto thee, O thou that dwellest in the land, the time is come, the day of trouble. Y'all got trouble on y'all hands, is near, and not the sounding again of the mountains. You see? So now I'm going to pick back up. Well, Moses is telling them in Deuteronomy 28:68, where, like I said, it's an isolated verse. Thou shalt see it no more again. Once he finishes there, then he goes back to connect with the first part of this paragraph, where he said, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. And then come back down to the beginning of the bottom part of that phrase. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen, meaning slave men, and bondwomen, meaning slave women, and no man shall buy you, meaning nobody's going to redeem you out of that captivity, the way the children of Israel had the ability to buy one of their brothers out of servitude when they were in servitude back in the days of old. Okay, and that's over in Leviticus, I think 35, somewhere around there, and 35, maybe 40, 36 or 37, somewhere around there, 38. But I hope that makes sense to you in reference to them not seeing that mountain again. Look at it. Go back, look at the verses, examine it, and try to sort it out in your own head. All right. Now, if I'm wrong about that, hey, I'll just repent of it, and I'll correct it. And if that's not what it's saying, then that's not what it's saying. But just take a look at it, whoever you be. But before I close out, because I'm getting ready to shut it down right now, I want to go back to look at another verse real quick, which is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 45. Let me look at that real quick and bring do a little explanation on this real quick. Where verse 45 says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes. Let's see. Yeah, and his statutes and with which he commanded thee. And they, verse 46, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So right here in verse 46, where it says these curses are going to be upon you for a sign and a wonder, and your seed. Well, when the children of Israel went into the Babylonian captivity, they knew who they were. They didn't need a sign that pointed back to them to show them, to give them the indication that, hey, we're the children of Israel. When the children of Israel went into Mede and Persian captivity, when the children of Israel went into the captivity under the Greeks, and under the captivity under the the Romans, they knew who they were. They knew that they were the children of Israel. They were just disobedient, but they knew who they were. So why is it saying, and these curses shall be upon you for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever? When you look at the curse, Deuteronomy 28:48, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he, meaning the person that you're going to be, or the enemies that you're going to be serving, shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. That happened to our people. And when you look at verse 68 and consider it, because these curses are not in the, they don't show up anywhere in the Bible, according to the curses that Moses said will befall us, or according to the curses that Daniel said that Moses said when he said the curses are poured out upon us. You can't go in the Bible and show where the children of Israel went into captivity on ships. Okay, and now verse 68, it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy thee. That verse is nowhere in the Bible. The prophecy of that coming to fruition is nowhere in the Bible. You can't find it where it actually happened. So that's why verse 46 is saying, and they shall be upon you for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, because it didn't only affect our foreparents that came over here in the days of 1619 on up and on throughout until these days and times. It affected our children just as well. Their children and their children's children and their children's children's children, even up unto us this day. And now, being that we're here and the Lord has allowed his spirit to be poured out on the dry bones, and we are now waking up to who we are, and when we gain understanding, we can look at these signs and we can see that now what the scripture is saying when it makes reference to these signs shall be upon you for a sign, that's for us. That's for us to look at and see that, hey, these signs fit these people from 1619. And so if they fit those people from 1619, let's see, their children had children, and their children's children had children, and their children's children had children, and their children's children had children. And by the time that their children had children, my great-grandmother or great-great-grandmother and or great-great-grandfather and great-grandmother and great-grandfather came along the way somewhere in there. And then my mother and my father was born. Now, these are of the same people from the beginning of 1619. And my mother and father were born, and then I was born. So if my mother and father and my grandmother and grandfather and my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather goes back to those people that came in 1619 from those that came on ships that basically correspond or identify with the curse of Deuteronomy 28:68. If those people go all the way back to there, as far as my relatives go, then who would that make me? What would that make me? What would my nationality be? Well, in Deuteronomy 1:1, it says that these be the words that Moses spake unto all the children of Israel. So, if I'm looking at the signs of the curses and they fit my people, then you got to have some understanding of what that means. Whoever you are, listening to the videos and or whatever, to make sense of it. So now, let's finish up. Jeremiah 50:42. Okay, Jeremiah 50:42. 42. So, Jeremiah 50 and 42. Let me make sure I got the right verse. So, I'll start at 40. I'll start at 41. Behold, a people shall come from the north, and a great nation, and many kings shall be raised up from the coast of the earth. They shall hold the bow and the lace. They are cruel and will not show mercy. Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses, everyone put in array, like a man to the battle against thee, O daughter of Babylon. Now here, the Lord is saying that nations are going to come against the daughter of Babylon. Now remember, early on in Jeremiah, he was talking to Babylon. He didn't say the daughter of Babylon. He was talking about Babylon. He's talking about nations are going to rise up against the daughter of Babylon. So where did this daughter of Babylon come from? And now remember, this is all in the book of Jeremiah. And now all of a sudden, he's talking about the daughter of Babylon. So I'm letting y'all know, this is letting y'all know that when the Lord is speaking, this is Job 11 and 6. The wisdom of the secret of wisdom, that it is double. All the while Jeremiah was talking, he was talking about ancient Babylon, but he was also talking about another Babylon just as well. Okay, so and well, let me give you one more. Jeremiah 51 and 33. Let's see, verse 33, real quick, just to show you. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, the daughter of Babylon is like a thrashing floor. It is time to thrash her. Yet a little while, and the time of her harvest shall come. Verse 33, let's see. You see how he make reference to the daughter of Babylon again? And there's another verse in here where he makes reference to the daughter of Babylon and the daughter of the Chaldean. Let's see. I can't find that verse. Well, I ain't going to waste no more time because I've been at it for a while now. But nevertheless, that's pretty much all I have for you. And I pray that the Lord give you understanding and allow you to receive what was taught here in this lesson. So all praises to the Most High, for the ears. And I pray the Lord bless the ears that have heard and listened, that have listened and heard, and that the Lord allow, a seed to be sown. And maybe, Lord willing, God would allow somebody else to come along and water. And, God might give, Lord willing, God give the increase. So all praise to the Most High. All praise to the Most High for our brethren and the men of old, the prophets, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, that have brought about the word of God to us so that we have it today, presently, to read it and understand it. And all praise to the Most High for giving us ears to hear, and eyes to see, to receive his word, that we might understand it and prepare for the day of his return. So everybody be blessed. Carry on with your day. All praise to the Most High. Thanks for listening. All right, bye.